same with the Church of England. I mean, what with being a North London Jew, I mean, obviously, I think I should probably steer clear of getting involved in other religions and their cleaning out and their brooms that are required.
Well, indeed. So, yeah, all of that coming up. And also an outrageous attempt at intimidation by the BBC licence police. If you've seen this letter that's been delivered to lots and lots of people that apparently haven't registered to have a licence.
Well, and I guess we will find out about that particular story in a moment. Anyway, so that's Russell Quirk. He's coming up next. I'm going to be back tomorrow from 4 o'clock for Drive, so I very much hope you join me then. Meanwhile, stay with us here on Talk.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. The shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Russell Quirk. I'm here till 10 o'clock, and for the next 3 hours the team and I are going to bring you the news and views that will inform and entertain, and in all honesty probably wind you up just a little bit, I suspect. But it's Christmas and you're now off, of course, for the next few days, so you can take time to join in rather than just shouting at your DAB Plus device, your smart speaker or YouTube. Get involved, vent your spleen here on the home of common sense. You can call me on 0344 499 1000 or text Talk and your message to 87222. So a bit of a rundown there with James as to what we're going to be talking about. I think the most important story, bar one, is the Christmas movie rundown. So I'm going to be revealing in a second what the top 4 are. Then I'm going to suggest that you might want to join me in deciding on what the 5th one is. And I thought it would be easier to do it this way, rather than having lots and lots of people randomly contact us and say, well, I think number 1 is this and number 2 is that. Look, I've already decided for you. Isn't that nice of me? Isn't that gratuitous? But you will have a say, because this obviously is a democracy, so you can decide what is the 5th. But the most important story is one of man flu, and I have to say that I've been suffering with it up until a day or two ago, in bed for 3 or 4 days. Really not very nice at all. And it turns out, with a little bit of research, the fact that man flu is really a thing. Would you believe? Man flu is really a thing. Harvard research says that men get flu worse. And look, some of you, maybe 50% of the population listening to this, aren't going to like this very much, but men have apparently a slightly more diluted immune system than women, which means that we get the symptoms of flu harsher. It takes us longer to recover, and actually we're more likely to be hospitalised. Now, why am I saying this? Is it for a bit of sympathy? Well, yes, of course. But also just to say that if you do have a man in your life that ultimately has been moaning over the last few days, as many may have been, it seems, because there seems to be rather an epidemic of this, that they're really, really suffering, well, then genuinely they are. And so I'd like to hear from you, either as a male, tell us how bad your man flu has been, how many days you've been confined to bed, but also as the better half in that person's life. Have you looked after them? Have you supported them? My wife certainly was great. She was my carer for 4 or 5 days, and it helped me to a swift recovery so that I could be here this evening. But anyway, man flu is a thing. It's official. It's science, I suppose, I would say. Anyway, we're also going to be talking about this Prince of Darkness ambassador to the United States thing. Obviously, James Max has just discussed this in his show. We're going to be talking in a little while, though, to Greg Swenson, who's the chairman of Republican Overseas, to see what he makes of two things, I suppose. One, the fact that Peter Mandelson's been nominated, being put into the position of US ambassador at all, but also the fact that it looks like he's going to be propped up by Nigel Farage. And if he wasn't going to be propped up by Nigel Farage, what would that mean for our special relationship? So that's coming up very, very shortly. We're also going to be talking to Peter Blexley, our favourite ex-copper, on the subject of Christmas shoplifting. Surprise, surprise. Christmas shoplifting is at an all-time high. We have some numbers coming up that will shock you. The fact that shoplifting is an epidemic, talking of man flu, I think Christmas shoplifting is probably an even bigger epidemic than man flu. Certainly seems to be ignored, though, by the authorities and by politicians. What does that mean, though, if you're a shop owner? What does that mean as a consumer when it comes to the cost of that shoplifting effectively being chucked onto the price of your goods in the future? So we're going to be talking about that. And also I'll be joined from 7:30 or so by Simon Danczuk. Now, Simon Danczuk is a former Labour Party MP. I'm obviously going to be talking to him about his former party and their wonderful handling of the UK economy. I mean, only 5 to 6 months in, I suppose we're barely 6 months, and it looks like it's not going very well at all, is it? But also the thing I really want to talk to Simon about, of course, is the very fact that he has been blocked on social media by the leader of his former party, Keir Starmer. It'd be interesting to see if we can work out exactly why that is. Let's see if Simon has the answer as to why he's been blocked. So much for free speech. Also, I want to talk about Elon Musk. Should he be allowed to donate to Reform? I think so. Don't you? Let me know what you think in terms of why he should be, or indeed why he shouldn't be allowed to donate to Reform, particularly, and I ask you to have this in mind before you form an opinion on that. Of course, we have rules around who can donate to British political parties, but let's be clear, Elon Musk owns a number of businesses that have subsidiaries in Britain. Tesla, for instance, obviously is one, and X. X makes millions and millions of pounds in Britain, as does Tesla. So let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000, or you can text on 87222. Let me know what you think about Elon Musk, big inverted commas here, meddling in British politics. Let's see what you think about that. And also, the latest cock-up from the BBC. Not really a week goes by where the BBC do not fail to cover themselves in the opposite of glory, whether it's covering up for paedophilic behaviour, the likes of Hugh Edwards and so on, or general bad behaviour, not managing to keep Gary Lineker on a leash or whatever. It seems now that the BBC have decided to really bring those to task that have decided not to register for a TV licence by sending them a letter, which we will show to you on screen later. For those that are listening on DAB, of course, I will read it out to you. But effectively, it's a threat. It's intimidation. which is designed to scare you on the basis that BBC licensed police might just turn up on your doorstep on no less than Christmas Day. Can you believe that? The BBC licensed police might turn up on your doorstep on Christmas Day to bring you to task if they think you haven't got the correct TV licence. Travel chaos too. We'll be speaking to Simon Calder a little bit later on. All sorts of things going on, just like every Christmas, whether it's strikes, whether it's bad weather, whether it's chaos on the roads, whatever. So we'll be talking about all of this over the next 3 hours. Settle in. We will be bringing you news, views, opinion and entertainment like nowhere else. But first of all, let's speak to Greg Swenson, who is chairman of Republicans Overseas. Greg, thanks very much indeed for joining me, just 2 days out from Christmas.
Yeah, good to see you, Russell.
Yeah, good to see you, sir. Let's talk about this weird dynamic, almost the odd couple, or the oddest couple in a political pairing, really, in Peter Mandelson, the Prince of Darkness, as we call him here, who's been appointed, obviously, as the UK's ambassador to the US, just, 3-4 weeks before Donald Trump takes office. I mean, almost as a bit of a slap in the face, I think. But also now, the fact that, because Peter Mandelson has said quite a few nasty things, of course, about Donald Trump in the past, as most people on the Labour front bench in this country indeed have also over the last few months and years. So we've now got Nigel Farage almost being teed up to try and help Peter Mandelson to help mend, I suppose, rebuild the bridges of the US-UK special relationship. So two questions, Greg, if I may. First of all, what do you think about the appointment of Peter Mandelson, a man that was sacked from the Labour cabinet twice, and that, of course, as I'm sure you know, has very, very well-documented relations, or had, of course, with Jeffrey Epstein, a notorious convicted paedophile. Relations, by the way, after he was convicted as a paedophile.
Yeah.
So, first question, what do you think about the appointment? Do you think it shows huge misjudgment on the part of Keir Starmer?
It's massively misjudged, and it's also really bad optics and bad timing. But I think it's a mistake, fundamentally. So, could it be fixed? Maybe, but I would hope that they'll do the right thing and just change their mind on this.
And so then the second part of this is Nigel Farage, obviously, is Donald Trump's good friend, is seemingly going to come to the rescue and help Peter Mandelson. I mean, I think Farage has actually made it clear in the press that, yes, he would assist. He doesn't mind being a kind of bridge builder between Mandelson and the Labour government and Donald Trump. What do you think about that even has to be a dynamic put in play? And do you think Farage is right, or do you think he should kind of stand back and let this relationship implode just out of spite?
No, I think Nigel's bigger than that. And I think that if Keir Starmer did the right thing, he would change direction on this. But if he sticks with him, then good for Nigel for volunteering. Nigel definitely has a very close relationship with President Trump. I think it can help the cause of U.S.-UK relations. So, good for Nigel for volunteering. I believe that he has a much better call into the U.S. than anyone in Keir Starmer's administration right now, but especially Peter Mandelson. So again, I'll reiterate that it's a mistake to nominate him as ambassador. I hope they change, but if they stick with it, yes, that's great for Nigel to volunteer.
So let's be clear on what Mandelson has said about Donald Trump. So the man that, and Mandelson, of course, as part of this role, is going to be living in Washington. So he's going to be almost a neighbour of Donald Trump. He's going to presumably rub shoulders with him. He'll be called in every now and again, obviously, if there's an incident or a reason to do so. And one would imagine that would happen on a fairly regular basis. So these are some of the things that Peter Mandelson has previously said about Donald Trump. He said he's a danger to the world. He's also said that he is nothing short of a white nationalist and a racist. How's that first meeting going to go down, Greg?
Yeah. Look, it's not only is it untrue, and there's no content, there's no basis for those comments, and the same thing with David Lammy. So why they've never been able to explain why Donald Trump is a white nationalist, why he's a racist. It's just not true. It's obscene, but it's also very disrespectful. And it's one thing if you're criticizing your political opponent. There's nothing wrong with that. But to call someone a white nationalist or a racist, that's just beyond the pale. So I think, look, he's basically stated his ground. He's drawn the line in the sand. Can he overcome that? Maybe he's a great diplomat and he's able to do that. But that's not exactly diplomatic, those kind of comments. And again, there's no support for those conclusions. So I think he might be dead on arrival. But again, if he's not, I'm quite sure I have much more confidence in Nigel Farage than I do in Peter Mandelson.
And I suspect any diplomatic victories over the coming months and years, if Nigel Farage is involved, it'll be more to do with Nigel Farage than it will be with Peter Mandelson. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, as an example, trade. Of course, one of the things that Donald Trump has said that he's going to invoke are tariffs. Those tariffs could therefore hurt British exporters. I suspect if we are exempted from those tariffs, it'll be more to do with Nigel Farage's efforts than Peter Mandelson's. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And Nigel's mentioned that. He's pointed that out, that this is an opportunity. If there's going to be tariffs, with multiple trading partners or with the West, get ahead of it and do the right thing. Now, I'm not sure that Keir Starmer is up to that. I would hope so. It's better for the UK. It's better for the US-UK relationship. The US and the UK are, the number one or number two in trade with each other, number one or number two in foreign direct investment. So this is a really important relationship for the UK. So, again, I think he should probably choose more wisely in terms of who is going to be the ambassador to the US. But if he's going to stick with it, or if there's no one even in the Labor orbit that hasn't said something obnoxious about President Trump, well, then Nigel can help. And again, that's great for Nigel to volunteer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you who would have been a better pick than Peter Mandelson. I think your answer would be anyone.
Yeah, I think so. And look, they could have stuck with the diplomatic corps. They could have gone with a career diplomat like Kim, who's done a great job and is well respected in Washington. Go to, why pick a politician who's made a habit of saying really nasty things about President Trump?
But Greg, why do you think? So we've only got a couple of minutes left. Sorry, but why do you think Keir Starmer has appointed a politician of the past? I mean, he's not really been around in public view for some time, but also with such a checkered past, and frankly, a man that is really in no position whatsoever to start preaching, moral heights. Frankly,
exactly.
Why do you think Keir Starmer might have appointed him? Do you think this has got the fingerprints of Tony Blair all over it?
Well, it might, and I think it's the sheer snobbery of that sort of diplomatic class or political class, where not only do they insult people like President Trump, but they're insulting the voters. They're 50% of the country. Trump won the popular vote by 1.5 points. Nobody expected that. He's polling at 53, while Keir Starmer's polling, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Russell, in the 20s. And even Joe Biden, which we haven't seen much of him lately, he's polling at 35 in the U.S. So, you've got someone who's very popular right now in President Trump. The people voted for him for a reason. So why send a shot across the bow when you should be reaching out to him in a very positive way? Maybe even take a page out of his playbook. Not that I expect Labor will do that, but I think we can expect something, some of that from Nigel Farage, where, let's promote tax reform, let's promote deregulation. Again, I don't expect that from Labor, but if Nigel can somehow convince the UK government that there's some merit to the things that got Trump elected and that are also winning in other Western European countries, the voters have shifted, and it's just bad timing for the UK in that we elected a Labor government during this trend, but we can.
But only another 4.5 years, Greg. So not long to go. Look, Greg, thank you very much indeed, as ever, for your contribution, Greg Swenson, and have a great Christmas. And I'm sure we'll speak to you, if not before, very soon after. Okay, we're going to take a break. Back after this, I'm Russell Quirk. This is Talk.
she sees the state as the primary engine of growth, and it picks winners and it decides which are the most productive sectors of the economy. It's sort of like, you know, turning things on their head. That, you know, the way that Liz Truss would see things, you know, she would say, well, you roll back the state and you get the animal spirits going and you let entrepreneurs and the market take care of everything. They see things in the opposite way. What's very interesting is Liz Truss wasn't even allowed 5 minutes to see if her ideas would do any good.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is...
Welcome back. I'm Russell Quirk here covering for Kevin O'Sullivan, who is in some far sunnier clime than ours, away for Christmas. I'll be here till 10 o'clock. Right, let's get controversial. I guess we have just been a little bit controversial with regard to the kind of Farage Mandelson thing, and I think we made it very, very clear that we don't think Peter Mandelson was perhaps the top pick to be the UK's ambassador to the US. But far more controversial will be our choice of your top Christmas movies. Now, to make it easier for you, I have decided on the top 4. Here they are. Ready? Love Actually is number 1. That's the best Christmas film ever. Followed by Home Alone, followed by Home Alone 2, and then followed by The Holiday. Now, I'll read those back to you. Love Actually, Home Alone 2, and The Holiday. Now, number 5 here is blank. That's up to you to decide. Now, I'm sure that now we're going to get lots of calls, 0344 499 1000, and lots of texts saying you don't agree with 1 to 4. But as I say, just to make things easy, I've already decided on those, and it's my show, so I guess that's that. But I'd love to hear from you what you think number 5 should be. Let me know, 0344 499 1000, or indeed text talk and your message to 87222. Talking of controversy, though, let's talk about Christmas shoplifting, shall we? If you're a shopkeeper in particular, you might be sick to the back teeth, frankly, of your stock being nicked. Whether you're a small shopkeeper or a big shopkeeper, a Boots, a Marks and Spencer's or whoever, the fact that millions, hundreds of millions of pounds are wasted on the basis of stuff that is stolen from stores, which inevitably means that goods become more expensive for the rest of us. It's an absolute scandal. I can tell you that there are, in the last 12 months, there have been 245,000 unsolved shoplifting incidents in the last year. 245,000 unsolved shoplifting incidents in the last year. That's up a staggering 38% from 2019. Do the police do anything about it? Are our politicians doing anything about it? Do the judiciary do anything about it? No, of course they don't. And this is not a victimless crime. And I'll tell you what else it isn't, is old ladies nicking cat food and, you know, loaves of bread because they can't afford to live. I'm sure there's a little element of that, but as I'm going to talk to Peter Blexley about in a second, this is becoming more and more of an organised crime issue. So, Peter joins me. Peter, thank you. Welcome back to Talk. Not that you're ever far away.
Good evening.
Good evening. This makes my blood boil. There's a lot of things about your old mob, the police, and the judiciary that really get my goat. But the shoplifting epidemic, the gateway crime, I suppose, that I'm sure leads to a lot of villains becoming bigger villains. This epidemic, 245,000 unsolved shoplifting crimes. These are just the ones that are reported, of course, in the last 12 months. It is an utter disgrace. I'm embarrassed on our behalf as a country.
And so we should be. It's a huge stain on our society, the country we live in. And let me just try and add a bit. That figure, some 250,000 unsolved shoplifting cases, is a tiny percentage of what is really going on. Reliable estimates say that 1 in 40 cases of shoplifting is reported, the overwhelming majority of them not being reported because shopkeepers know it is highly unlikely that the police will attend, and then even if they do, it is also highly unlikely that a prosecution will follow. We have a rampant epidemic of shoplifting blighting every street in our nation, and quite simply, very, very little is being done about it.
Well, nothing's been done, is it? I mean, and it's not even seen as a crime anymore, is it, by police forces up and down the country, really?
Well, in some places, and it's a very, very tiny number, you have private security companies who have got plainclothes detectives who are detecting these offences, detaining people, and they're being prosecuted. But it is quite literally a drop in the ocean. It could be done. All of this could be dealt with a tinkering of legislation by the government, by a political will to get it done, by police grasping the nettle and realising that theft, funnily enough, is a crime and is part of their job, and also by certain retailers training their security staff properly and dumping liberal, woke, lefty, non-intervention policies, which means they say to their staff, don't get involved, do not intervene, let them walk out of the shop. It's a national disgrace.
And Peter, what does happen if a security guard or a member of the shop staff or indeed a member of the public does seek to get involved? I mean, we see these things on social media sometimes where, you know, we do see a have-a-go hero every now and again, you know, a security guard that says, no, mate, you're not taking that trolley full of electrical goods out the doors of Curry's or wherever it might be, and they stop them and there's an altercation and so on. Where does the law land in terms of supporting that intervention?
Theft is what is known in legal terms as an arrestable offence. It carries a punishment of imprisonment over 5 years. So therefore, a member of the public, a store detective, a private detective can intervene and does have a power of arrest to detain somebody for the offence of theft. That's cast iron. It's on the statute book. Of course, there are challenges when it comes to depriving somebody of their liberty, taking hold of them and saying, you're not going anywhere, sunshine, because that's exactly what you're doing. You're taking them into custody, in essence, but you're allowed to do that. The law allows you to do it. What I wouldn't want people doing is making a bad situation worse, for example, and not being aware of what force they could use if the offender started to kick off and didn't want to be detained. Once again, the law does cover you as long as what you're doing is reasonable and proportionate, and of course you are physically able to exert some force upon that person, then you remain entitled to detain them. The trouble is, you might ring 999, then get told to ring 101, and then have to wait for hours to see if the police turn up, if indeed they do.
But Peter, are the police more likely to turn up if someone has apprehended that perpetrator?
You would like to think so, and there are key buzzwords that you can use that actually the police are always on kind of red alert to. If you can say, for example, there is an element of threat, or somebody is vulnerable, or there is violence being committed, those kind of words tend to get the attention of the police a bit more quickly. But again, you see, because our police in the last couple of decades have basically degenerated from being a police force that enforced the law, patrolled the streets, prevented crime and investigated crime when it happened, because it's morphed courtesy of the pathetic police leadership that's polluted the corridors of policing power for the last couple of decades. It's morphed into a social service because all those highly educated senior police officers willingly took on jobs which really weren't the police's job in the first place. They loved it. They even came up with a stupid expression that said, we're the service that doesn't say no. Well, of course, that's why the police service has got itself in such a dreadful situation in many regards, and it needs to actually reconnect with what it's there for, be the police service that the public want and desperately need, and moreover, what shopkeepers really need right now.
And Pete, the fascinating thing for me, or rather the even more disgraceful thing, not just fascinating but horrifying and disappointing, is that according to stats that I looked at earlier on, there are now 147,000 police officers in England and Wales, so just above the previous high, so a so-called all-time high. This is police officers, not just total police staff. Yet there was a poll done recently where half of the population of Britain that was polled said that they never see a police officer on the beat. So we can't use the excuse that there aren't enough police officers. I mean, and we know that the Tories Theresa May cut police officers back in her day, but obviously they gradually crept back. Where the hell are they?
Well, many of them are behind desks doing roles that could and should be filled by civilian staff. Many of them are suspended. A huge number of them have been removed from public duties because they're under investigation, because we do, unfortunately, have a police service that's turning in on itself in a very clumsy, perhaps well-intentioned, but very clumsy attempt to root out wrongdoers. And, of course, being on the front line, like so many brilliant, courageous men and women are as we speak, is a very difficult job. But those men and women are invariably going from one 999 call to another 999 call, and so it continues throughout the entirety of their shift.
Which is why we only ever see them now really as a response force rather than a prevention force. Peter, we've got to stop it there, I'm afraid, mate. And have a wonderful Christmas to you and your lovely wife. I had the pleasure of meeting last night, the other night, with my wife, actually. So have a great Christmas. And thank you, as ever, for your wise words. We're going to take a break and we're going to be back with Simon Danchuk. This is Russell Quirk. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Russell Quirk. I'm in for Kevin O'Sullivan until 10 o'clock. I'm here tomorrow as well, actually, and also Friday. But also here for the next 2.5 hours or so is my good friend Simon Danchuk, who's an... Do you mind me saying you're an ex-Labour MP?
I don't mind that.
Okay, you're insulted by that?
No, well, no.
You might be.
I have some regrets, but yeah.
So you were just saying to me in the break about your wife works in retail, and you got some... Or she's got some stories to tell, has told you about shoplifting and the epidemic, the extent to which it's prevalent. I mean, it's horrifying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And people just come into the store, even have keys for some of the storage cupboards. Open, it must be a general...
Like a standard key or
standard key or something. Open it and just take lots of stock, put it into bags and then leave.
I bet they don't even run out anymore. I bet they walk.
No, absolutely. Push an old lady over, to the point where I've said to my wife not to tell me this. It annoys me that much. And the interesting thing is, I think, from a retail perspective, all the retailers are making a profit. There's no doubt about that. So they're obviously marking up in anticipation of losing stock.
Yeah.
And we're having to pay for that.
Pay for it, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Exactly right.
And also, I mean, not quite as important as that, but your top 5 Christmas movies, Simon.
Oh, goodness.
I've already declared the top 4, so don't worry, you've only got to come up with one. So Love Actually, Home Alone 2, and The Holiday. Who would you put as number 5? And while he's thinking, let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Both actually of the Christmas shoplifting epidemic, and what do you think we should do about it? Because it's not on, is it? It's growing and growing and growing, and I think it's also a gateway crime. If you get away with shoplifting, then you move on to other bigger things. It's also being infiltrated by organised crime now, where things are being ordered. So they'll send a load of people out to nick certain things from Hugo Boss or from Apple or Marks and Spencer's. So this is not, as I say, this is not poor old ladies that can't afford to eat going out and nicking cans of Campbell's chicken soup. This is high value stuff being stolen to order. Anyway, 0344 499 1000. Let me know what you think about the Christmas shopping epidemic, but also what are your favourite Christmas movies? I've got a couple of texts, actually. Fiona from Battle says it should be Elf in 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th place. Best film ever. OK, well, we'll put that as a contender for number 5. Bob says Die Hard. Bob, you can't have Die Hard. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Just because it's got snow in the background and just because it's set at Christmas doesn't mean it's a Christmas film. It's a film about terrorists, for goodness sake. Christmas movies, here's the definition. Obviously, they have to be based at Christmas, but they have to have a feel-good factor. I'm not sure Die Hard's got a particularly feel-good factor about it, apart from Bruce Willis shooting terrorists, I suppose. Go on, Simon.
Well, I'm considerably older than you, Russell, so I go for something much more traditional. Is Wonderful World, is that a Christmas movie? Black and white movie?
Is it?
Did test that?
Dean's nodding his head and saying, yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's good. And what about White Christmas? Is that just a song, or is that a movie as well?
White Christmas?
Bing Crosby?
Was it the... I think it was the name of the song that was in the film, wasn't it?
You might be right.
Yeah, I don't know. You are going back a bit.
I am.
What are you, 80?
Plus.
OK, look, let's talk about slightly more serious things. Your old mob, and I'm going to keep giving you a little bit of stick about this. I know you're no longer in the Labour Party, you're no longer a Labour MP. How long were you a Labour MP for?
7 years, 2010 to 2017.
In Rochdale?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, the economy.
Yeah.
It's quite an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have to say that many of us here on this channel, certainly I did, warned people what would happen if Labour took office and what they would do to the economy, because they've done it before. I think in fairness, I think when you were around, actually, so 2010 onwards, 1997 onwards, until 2010, Blair then Brown, until Brown had a reasonable run at it, and I guess that was because Blair was probably more of a Tory than he was a Labour member, really. But of course, we all remember the 1970s, and to me, what Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are doing to the economy absolutely mirrors the days of Callaghan, Foote and Wilson, which is nick loads and loads of money from the private sector, persecute the wealth creators, be a little bit envious and jealous of them, play to your audience, which is these people are big pantomime villain kind of rich people, so let's tax them as much as we can. We've seen that in terms of not just what they've done to farmers and pensions, but particularly businesses, and then give it all to the public sector. Lo and behold, 5 months in, I mean, it's crashing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so if we look at the Office for National Statistics have just revised their figures, for growth in July, August, September, and they've said there was no growth at all. So they initially thought there was about 0.1% growth in each month.
This was Q3, no growth.
Yeah, they're saying no growth, and this is all under a Labour government, and it's worse than that, isn't it? Because inflation's gone up in November to 2.6%.
But it went up 2 months on the trot.
Yeah, mortgage rates are not coming down because of that. Footfall in retail, we were talking about retail, I think is down by over 11% on this time last year. People are really being squeezed. There's not and it's not quite, you were relating to the 1970s, it's not the winter of discontent, which was 79 necessarily, but if it carries on like this, next Christmas will be something near that. The country, the economy is going in the wrong direction. There's no doubt about that.
I don't know if you saw Ed Balls this morning on Good Morning Britain, did you?
No.
So he's slightly conflicted because his wife happens to be the Home Secretary. Yeah. So I guess he has to be, from the point of view of being dealt with at home in a satisfactory manner, shall we say, he has to be a little bit careful, which means he's got a conflict of interest. He was asked this morning if the Q3 numbers are Labour's fault, and he said no, absolutely not, because the budget wasn't until October the 30th. What Ed Balls, I'm afraid, fails to remember is that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves talked down the economy pretty much from the day that they became elected. So literally from July the 5th onwards, they were telling us how bad everything was. There was a £22 billion black hole. The budget was going to be awful, and basically talking down Britain financially. No wonder people stopped spending money, businesses stopped investing, businesses stopped employing people. So I think Labour, even though they will blame, of course, the tail end, the legacy, the momentum from the previous Tory government, I think that's bunkum.
Yeah, and it's disingenuous of Ed Balls to not make that point about confidence, not least because when I was an MP, he was the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, so he knows his onions when it comes to the economy, and he can't have forgot that, as you point out, Rachel Reeves was talking down the economy, really killed confidence. As soon as they came into power, beginning of July, they were talking down the economy, and that's had a real impact. It stopped people spending.
Because markets run on sentiment.
Oh, absolutely.
And confidence. And if you've got the most authoritative people in the land, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, the guy that runs the country and the person that is holding the purse strings, if they're telling you that things are terrible economically, I'm afraid, despite the fact that they've been proven to be a bunch of liars, frankly, you're going to believe them.
Yeah, absolutely. And they took economic steps well before the budget anyway, didn't they? They cut the winter fuel allowance, which sent a clear message out to say the government's not got no money. That's how, as well as hammering pensioners, it's hammering people's view of what's going on in the economy. They give big payouts to train drivers. So they were making economic decisions well before the budget. Ed Balls is being disingenuous in saying what he said. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, definitely. So just to recap, so GDP growth, as you say, Q3 was flat. I think we saw GDP growth numbers for October and November, which actually showed a decline in GDP growth. Right. We've now seen, yes, inflation up, as you say, 2 months on the trot. Interest rates, as a consequence, held. So we thought they were going to come down another 1 or 2 times this year. They haven't. And, of course, employment now is going to start to fall because of that lack of confidence in the business sector. Productivity, that's the other thing. Productivity is reducing. Again,
and it's bad enough as it is.
Yeah.
We have a very poor productivity rate. But the biggest killer in all of this in terms of the economy, and it is to do with the budget, is national insurance, and that is going to kill jobs. It's already killing jobs. There are people, employers, especially hospitality and again retail, which are person heavy. You need a lot of staff to run these businesses. They're looking to reduce the number of staff that they've got.
Yeah. And you knowing, I don't know if you know Rachel Reeves particularly, I don't know if she was around when you were around, but knowing some of these Labour front benches, as I'm sure you do you think Rachel Reeves now sits there thinking, OK, we've made a mistake? That budget was the wrong call. Do you think she genuinely might now start to think that? Because if she doesn't, then I think there's something wrong with her. Yeah. Now that the evidence is plain to see, it's plain as the nose in front of her face, that this stuff has had an instant and automatic effect on output, confidence, sentiment, and actually now, if you extrapolate this over the next year, 2, 3 years, it puts us in a very, very dark place economically. Do you think Rachel Reeves, A, will understand that she's made a mistake, and B, somehow do something about it.
Yeah, I do know her a little bit. I've met her and spoken to her on a number of occasions when I was in the House. She certainly won't admit it publicly that she's made a mistake. I don't believe that for 1 second. But there must be people around her saying that, listen, we need to change tack. Because what we're not far from now, you know, as we go into the new year, for example, there's a new packaging levy on retail, which will put £70 a year on your shopping bill, which is coming in because of...
Is this another Ed Miliband nonsense policy?
Yeah, all around recycling.
No wonder you left them, sir.
Well, we've got Donald Trump as president, and there's talk of tariffs on what we export to America. That would have a devastating impact on, and the problem is that most of the cabinet, the Labour cabinet, have attacked Donald Trump over the last few years and used some terrible language towards him. The Trump camp are not very keen on Peter Mandelson, who's going to be the...
We were just talking about it. It's a bit of an inconvenient problem, isn't it, now?
Yeah,
they should have thought about that.
Yeah, totally. And but this is student politics that these Labour people have been playing, and the impact of that is that if we end up with tariffs because Trump is not happy with who we've got in government, then that's going to impact our economy even more.
No, it will. OK, look, we're going to take a break, but I'm intrigued to hear why the Prime Minister's blocked you on social media, Simon. We'll talk about that in a sec. Back after this, I'm Russell Quirk, he's Simon Danchuk. This is Talk, back in a sec.
I understand the woman's frustration and anger because, you know, at the election, they made a whole host of promises and then they're backtracking on them. They also gave the impression by posing in photographs with possibly women that they were on their side. You know, and the public get really angry when they, you know, they see these promises being broken. They said they would not affect, you know, bring out tax rises, and yet here we are seeing these national insurance contributions going up.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk. I'm Russell Quirk, here till 10. Let's talk about this Christmas movie thing. It seems to be getting the texts going. Actually, Simon, for your benefit here, Clayton in Dartford says, I think Simon means It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. My choice for ultimate Christmas film, Christmas Carol, the Alistair Sim version. OK, fair enough.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I said Wonderful World.
Yeah, Wonderful Life.
Thank that
man.
Yeah,
Jimmy Stewart. He's going back a bit, isn't it?
It is.
Like
it is a classic, though.
Or something?
I think, I suspect that's one of the most popular movies ever.
Yeah, I suppose maybe the old Christmas movies. I mean, maybe that's the ultimate feel-good factor, really, an old Christmas film. And John in Braintree says, it has to be Zulu. What? What are you talking about? It's on every Christmas with 100 men in red tunics like Santa holding off 3,000 marauding... Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. I think you've gone off on one here. It's set in January, so it is close to Christmas and definitely makes me feel good every time I see it, always at Christmas. Yeah, OK, John, very funny. But no, that is definitely not making number 5, I'm afraid. OK, keep your texts coming in and your calls, 0344 499 1000. I'm genuinely intrigued as to whether you think that actually my top 4 are worthy of being top 4. So my number 1 is Love Actually, because that is the best Christmas film. Why? I think because it has a combination of lots of different things. Very well written, by the way. It's funny, it's got the whole romance thing going on, but it's genuinely feel-good, isn't it? And I think that's what we want at Christmas. We don't want die-hard stuff going on where it's all about, yes, killing people and throwing them out of buildings. That's not very Christmassy, is it? Well, unless you're in Russia, I suppose. So, yeah, Love Actually is my number 1. Home Alone 1 and 2. I suppose there's a debate there as to whether Home Alone 1 should be first or Home Alone 2. We had the debate actually earlier on before I came into the studio. A lot of people think Home Alone 2, because it's very Christmassy, because it's based in New York, that should be. And then The Holiday, of course, at number 4. So let me know if you agree or disagree. But talking about the disagreeable, Simon Danchuk, you've been very naughty, apparently, when it comes to our Prime Minister. A man that obviously doesn't like free speech very much. You've been blocked by the leader of your former party. Tell us the story.
On X, Twitter. Yeah, it's bizarre. So last night I was scrolling through social media, as you do, and I thought I'll check Keir Starmer's Christmas message to the armed forces, because there's been a video. And so I went on his X Twitter feed to have a look for it. And I found it, and he's very casually dressed, which annoyed me. I think you should always wear a suit and tie.
Did he have a fake background?
No, I don't know if it was fake, but he was too casually dressed. But irrespective of that, I'm just looking at this, and then I noticed that he's obviously blocked me because I couldn't respond to, I couldn't like or retweet his video, his post. And I thought, that's bizarre, is that? And I checked, and yeah, lo and behold, he's blocked me. And I thought, I wonder why that... And I still don't know why that is, in actual fact.
So you don't know when that happened?
No, I don't know when it happened. No, that's for sure. But it is very unusual. I know him from when I was in the House. He came into Parliament in 2015. I was there at the time. I met him a few times, spoke to him and everything like that. I have been constructively critical of his leadership in recent times.
So you were both in the parliamentary... Labour Party at the same time. So what was his role whilst you were still a Labour MP?
He'd be on the back benches, I think, primarily.
He wasn't in the shadow cabinet?
No, he might have been towards the 2017 before the election.
So you haven't knowingly upset him?
No, it must
Which is ironic, given that he's knowingly upset most of Britain.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I think he's become increasingly dictatorial and thin-skinned.
Do you think he always was, and that he hid it?
Well, that's interesting, because if you'd have asked me about him 2 years ago, I would have said he's not a bad guy, etc., etc.
Quite a moderate?
Yeah, quite a moderate, exactly. But as time has gone on...
He's an old-school Marxist.
Yeah, well, I would have said he's sort of North London Labour, that's how and it's sort of soft Labour. But, yeah, to the left of my politics. I was always traditional right-wing Labour, so tough on illegal immigration, tough on people committing crime, tough on benefit cheats.
So and that's proper working class Labour.
Proper working class Labour, that's exactly right. And that
unlike Keir Starmer.
It's the opposite of Keir Starmer, yeah, absolutely.
Or Peter Mandelson.
Or Pete, yeah. Well, Peter's probably a bit closer to my politics than he is to Starmer's, really. I mean, Tony Blair, you were saying earlier, was probably a Tory. You know, he was certainly on the right of British politics in terms of his economics and his social policy and crime and things like that, you know. But yeah, Starmer has clearly been upset by some of the constructive criticism, because I'm never rude, I never swear on social media or anything like that.
You haven't harassed him?
No, we don't even follow each other.
But the incredible thing is, I bet he doesn't even look at his Twitter account. It's not him, is it?
I don't know. He's that thin-skinned.
It'll be an army of comms people in Downing Street now looking after his Twitter. So I wonder what their policy is. And the question is, I guess, is it right, is it acceptable for the Prime Minister of Britain to be blocking people, particularly when they're ex-parliamentary colleagues?
It is bizarre, there's no doubt about it. If it is his staff, then he's culpable because he's hiring these staff to do this, and they must have agreement to be able to do this thing. But we have heard that he's either going on holiday or he is on holiday, and perhaps he's sat on his sun lounge just scrolling through his social media, blocking me and blocking
Well, because he's worked for, 5 months? Although some would argue that he's had lots of holidays. He's been out the country 22 times.
Well, exactly, but he's 6 months, I think it is now, but he's feeling the pressure, according to the Mail on Sunday.
He's not going to last the course.
He needs a break. Well, that raises an interesting point, that irrespective of who's doing the blocking, it does suggest the sensitivity there that he and the team are struggling in terms of
but he doesn't come across leadership at the moment, given some of the policies, some of the outrageous things that he and his front bench are introducing around farmers, pensioners, waspy women and so on. He seems to be extremely thick-skinned to the point of being a sociopath, frankly, in my opinion. Why, therefore, would he be so thin-skinned as to be blocking people like you? It almost seems schizophrenic.
Well, from a psychological perspective, I do wonder what's going on here, and I think that core team in Downing Street is really struggling. I mean, the unpopularity that's risen up since they won the general election should not be underestimated, and you'll note in any interview that Starmer does, he starts by saying, we have a strong mandate, we have a large majority. They don't have a strong mandate. They got 20% of the electorate supporting them. They have one of the shallowest mandates any government's had in many, many years. This is not 1997, and I think they are really personally feeling the pressure. I really do.
And do you buy the story that there are already Labour MPs manoeuvring behind the scenes to start to see the end of him?
Yeah, listen, I've been in politics 35 years, and so I have a good idea of what's being said, and I work around Westminster and hear a lot of the chatter and what's in the newspapers, and that'll be an accurate reflection of what's going on. There are people having conversations about how long he will last, and that might be a combination of him realising that he needs to move on or step down, and being pushed by his colleagues in the Parliamentary Labour Party. They're quite clearly not happy with the leadership that they've had in the last 6 months.
So MPs in particular will start to turn against him when their own seats are in jeopardy, so that won't be for a little while. But I guess the thing that is going to happen is that once Labour councillors and councils start losing control, those seats get lost, those council controls get lost, that will be a real catalyst, I think. Although obviously now it seems that most of what we would normally see as elections this May are going to be postponed.
That's quite possible, isn't it?
And because of this kind of devolution excuse, funny if I had a text from a mate of mine who happens to be leader of a Conservative group on a certain council in Essex, and he seemed, quite accepting of the fact that the county elections and others were going to be deferred. It's all fine. But it's not all fine, because actually it would be the ultimate barometer, by way of a thing that we called democracy, to actually have a litmus test as a consequence of what's been going on, so that if Labour are decimated in the local elections, that sends a message, doesn't it? Anyway, look, we're going to come back in a minute and talk about we're going to talk about the Church of England, actually, and how the Church of England seem to want to censor carols, believe it or not, because they might be offensive to other religions. Well, I think there's a lot about the Church of England that's definitely offensive, particularly where they cover up paedophilia. But on a slightly cheerier note, let's talk about those Christmas movies again. Lots and lots of text, which I'm going to read out for you in a second. And love some callers, please. Yeah, we've had a number already. More will be good. 0344 499 1000. Let me know what you're thinking with regard to anything that we've been talking about on the show so far. Just coming up to 8 o'clock, we're going to be back after the news with me and more Simon Danshaw.
spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened.
I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to Talk. Just gone 8 o'clock. I'm here till 10 o'clock. It's Russell Quirk in for Kevin O'Sullivan, who, of course, is away. It's Christmas week. Why wouldn't he be? He's worked hard all year, so we give him a little bit of time off, of course, and hopefully I'm doing a reasonable job of fitting in for him, I hope. But assisting me in that is Simon Danchuk. I'm delighted to say joins me till about 8:30 this evening. Simon, I want to talk about the Church of England. Now, it's not my thing. I'm not a particularly religious person. I don't know about you. But actually, my comments as follows are not really about religion as such, whether you want to believe in it or not. It's the utter crass hypocrisy of our Church of England. Obviously, we've just had Justin Welby, who's resigned under a cloud for admitting, really, that he covered up an abuse scandal and obviously made a not very apologetic speech in the House of Lords when he did resign. But we now hear that the Archbishop of York, when he was the Archbishop of Chelmsford, actually, in my manner, Stephen Cottrell, has also seemingly covered up the paedophile exploits of another priest called David Tudor. It just seems to be another week, another case of paedophilia in the Church of England. However, what they've turned their attention to this week, in Christmas week, Steinman, is something that they believe is much more important, and that is censoring the words in Christmas carols. Because they might be offensive. Yeah. Can you believe this?
Well, I can believe it because it's the Church of England.
Laugh, because this is serious stuff.
Absolutely. I think it's the Diocese of Birmingham that has sent out an email saying, you know, be careful about what words you use in these traditional carols. And just to give you one example, they said it's Jesus is the true Messiah, which appears in one carol, and they said that's problematic because it might upset other religions.
This is the carol, Lo, he comes with clouds descending. Must admit, it's not in my top 10, but a favourite of Queen Victoria, apparently. But yeah, Jesus is the true Messiah. I mean, how can the Church of England say that that is something that we should censor and edit because it might upset other faiths?
Yeah, why do they worry about that? I mean, Christians will buy into the Church of England England. What's the problem?
It's almost like the Church of England.
I am quite religious and spiritual, and I go to church on a weekly basis. Not to the Church of England, I hasten to add, thankfully. But they've done themselves a disservice, haven't they? They focus on all the wrong issues. I mean, you mentioned Justin Welby. He talked more about illegal immigration and how we had to be welcoming.
Should take refugees. They're all welcome.
Oh, absolutely. Well, whereas Lambeth Palace, I don't think had any staying there actually where he lived.
Exactly. But one of the biggest landowners in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so why not concentrate on do the knitting, as we would say. You know, just concentrate on the core job of Christianity and providing a good service. No wonder the Church of England's numbers are continually shrinking.
It's almost like they just put their hands up and given in. So yes, shrinking congregations, worried about any other faith. Here's another one. The hymn "O Come, Emmanuel" has been singled out for depicting other faiths as being outside of God's grace. And this has upset the C of E's High Command because of the phrase that it uses within it, captive Israel. Now, with everything that's going on at the moment, I mean, you would imagine that they would just want to avoid comment on this or being seen to be taking a side. But that's exactly what they've just done. So they want to censor the words within a carol, a hymn, the words captive Israel, because they think it might offend. I mean, if we really dissected hymns, doctrines, the Bible even. I mean, there's a lot to be offended by, right? But it is of its time, of course, and, it's a faith. I mean, I would argue it's all made up anyway, so what? But that's obviously a controversial view, not one shared by lots and lots of different people. But the fact that the Church of England are trying to move the goalposts, whitewash history... I mean, whatever next? I mean, maybe we shouldn't call them carols, maybe because that's a bit too gender-specific, is it?
No thought about that. But you just write some new...
Next year, 2025, that'll be on the list.
Write some new carols, write some modern-day carols with different language. And keep the traditional ones.
Yeah.
But one vicar said, to quote him, even communist President Putin doesn't order Russian Orthodox churches to censor carols. So even he's quite relaxed about these issues, but... The current temporary Archbishop of Canterbury clearly isn't.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely disgraceful, and I think it's just meddling, isn't it? And it's totally and utterly and completely unnecessary. No one cares, I suspect, apart from the ultra woke people themselves that make up the executive of the Church of England.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people go into church and listen to a sermon and sing a hymn or two on a Sunday and think, oh, actually, I think those old words that were written 500 years ago are a bit offensive, actually, if you interpret them in a particular way. I mean, it's nonsense.
Total nonsense. And my advice, come the carol service, is sing loud and proud. That's it. Sing traditionally loud.
But it also, and again, at the risk of triggering people, it almost is a kind of indication of the fact that we are propelling ourselves towards a place where we no longer celebrate Christmas, where even the Church of England might start saying, well, actually, the whole Christmas thing, Christ, that's one faith, Christmas is offensive, we've already got, I don't want to get into the whole winter market thing, given what's gone on in Germany over the 2 or 3 days, that's been talked about a lot, obviously, on this channel over the last 48 hours for obvious reasons. But the fact that we no longer call Christmas markets, we call them winter markets in some places, and the word Christmas is not allowed to be spoken. I mean, this kind of validation of that by the Church of England, of all bodies, I mean, roll forward, and you might say this is ridiculous, but roll forward 3, 4, 5 years. I wonder if the Church of England will be saying, look, we can't say Christmas, we can't celebrate Christmas. It's offensive to other religions.
Yeah. Well, I think you're making a really interesting point about this narrative that's developed where we have to talk about, instead of mentioning Christmas or having Christmas, people are even trying to pull Christmas trees down in certain countries across the world. Yeah, in Turkey there's an example of Muslims pulling down a Christmas tree. So there's all this going on, but it is a narrative where we have to be all embracing of every religion, which really translates in Britain is to being accepting the Islamic faith and more understanding. But we don't interfere with Eid or with their religious festivals. So why do we allow people to interfere with, because we're a big majority Christian country, why do we bend our rules to accommodate them? I just don't get it.
We should all live side by side, shouldn't we? But also, no one really is offended by this. I mean, you know, the 99.99% of the public are not offended by this at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So why the leadership of the Church of England are jumping up and down about it, one can only guess. It's to satisfy their own position in terms of having a woke agenda, I think.
Yeah, so should we turn to a messiah of a different kind, a tech billionaire messiah, Elon Musk? And it's been well reported over the last few days that further to a visit, actually, by Nigel Farage to the United States to meet Elon Musk, that Elon Musk is tempted, apparently, we hear, to want to donate to reform. That really has put the cat amongst the pigeons. I don't know what your view is. Do you think he should be allowed to donate money to reform?
Yeah, I do think he should be allowed to, actually.
By the way, sorry, Nick Candy as well was there as also, who's the new treasurer of reform.
Correct, yeah. I think he should be able to donate. He has a business interest in Britain, a strong business interest in Britain, so he's got a vested interest, which I think is a positive. He's helping stimulate
one
our
of his
economy.
Relatives, was it one of his parents or grandparents was British, I think?
I didn't know that, actually.
So, yeah.
But Tesla, he sells cars in Britain. And
X has a subsidiary here?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he makes money here?
Yeah, and contributes to the economy. And interestingly, Russell, we have in our democracy a bit of a link there. If you want to stand as a councillor, we were talking about councils earlier, if you want to stand as a councillor, you don't have to necessarily live in the area. You can just have a business in the area. So there is a connection between business and democracy, in actual fact. And so I don't have a problem with somebody, however much money they have or what little amount they have, of making a contribution to British politics. And that's the system that we have in place. We don't have state funding of political parties, which they do have in some countries. And I think it's right that we don't.
Well, they do it on a per capita basis, don't they? So everyone gets the same amount based on a constituency's population and so on. And you know, I'd love to know what people think about this, actually. 0344 499 1000 or text us 87222. Let us know whether you think Elon Musk should be able to donate to reform, particularly as he has got British roots, both through family members and also through his commercial activities. But before people start saying, well, we shouldn't have any interference in British politics from foreign actors. Well, you know, it wasn't 3 weeks before the budget, maybe 2 weeks before the budget, that we had Bill Gates strolling round Downing Street. Yeah. Well, he might not have donated money, but that would smack to me of influence, and he's not British. You know, we've also had all sorts of rumours and scandals around money being donated to all sorts of parties, the Tories in particular, from funds whose sources are rather difficult to trace, so they could be coming from anywhere. And I'd put it to you this as well, that when it comes to the ultimate foreign influence and interference in British politics, that came from the EU. Now, the EU is a foreign body. So if we accepted that the EU could tell us what to do, decide how much money they gave us back, because obviously we already contributed, well, how can we now stand up and say, well, foreign money, foreign investment, foreign influence is somehow inappropriate? Well, actually, for decades, we've had exactly that. It's interesting, though, that, of course, as soon as someone comes along that is, rich enough to donate, let's say, $100 million to reform, but also politically connected to someone like Donald Trump, all of a sudden, people start getting concerned about it. And actually, not just the Labour Party, but, of course, Kemi Badenoch, who has said, no, I don't think anyone should come and be able to buy politics. Well, that's pretty rich coming from the Conservative Party. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The two mainstream parties are panicking, aren't they? Because one, he could give a chunk of money, a sizable donation, and also because he's very connected to Trump, as you've pointed out. There's no doubt about it. If he does make a donation, and I think under the rules currently, he's well within his rights to make a donation. And, you know, I don't think they'll be able to change the rules beforehand. It would look very strange if they attempted to rush legislation through to stop him. That would look very bad. So if he does make a donation and it's sizable, that will give Reform a real advantage. I mean, and let's not forget this. You pointed out the Conservatives have had major donations in the past. Labour had millions upon millions in the run-up to the July general election from companies and individuals who wanted to be on the winning side. So let's not be too critical of this donation.
I remember Lord Ashcroft, who, as far as I remember, is domiciled in Belize. Well, he has always been a donor to the Conservative Party. I mean, on and off, actually, depending on who the leader is, and has also funded lots and lots of polling in the run-up to elections, and so on. And look, and that's before we even get on to whether it's legitimate for the unions, for instance, to be bankrolling the Labour Party and so on. I've got a text I want to read you, actually, Simon. You ready for this? This is, let me just find it again, sorry. It's about you. And basically what it says is... where is it? It says, how can you move from socialist to capitalist so easily?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would never describe myself as a socialist.
I wouldn't either, but that's what the text says.
Yeah, no, so I never. So that's not where I were on the trajectory. As I pointed out earlier, I was right-wing Labour, so more of a social democrat in actual fact. And from there, not so much. I've always been pro-capitalism. That's what makes the world go around. Before I became an MP, I had my own business. I had 20-odd staff. Ran one of the few Labour MPs ever to have been in business.
I was going to say, if you were now on the front bench, you'd be the only one.
Yeah, absolutely, completely, yeah.
This is Dan from Kent, by the way.
Right,
in all that is holy, did Simon scrap socialism for pure capitalism? I'm confused or suspicious. Well, I guess, look, maybe Dan doesn't quite understand the various spectrums of the Labour Party, a bit like the Conservative Party. You know, you've got the Blairs on the right, and then you've got the Corbyns on the left, and a big kind of swathe of different views in the middle of all that, I guess. So, but yeah, I would never have characterised you as a socialist, that's for sure. But look, Dan from Kent, hopefully that answers your question as to how Simon has scrapped socialism, because he never was a socialist, and has gone now for pure capitalism. I mean, frankly, if you don't believe in capitalism, then you may as well be in North Korea, might you?
Yeah, absolutely. And credit to Dan for asking the question, but if I see him on Twitter or X, I promise not to block him.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you wouldn't do that. Going back to Kemi Badenoch, so how do you think she's done? Well, how's her start been?
Yeah, I think she's quite good at Prime Minister's questions, which we catch a glimpse of, don't we? Even the public catch a glimpse of that. It's the bit of politics that the public do engage with, is PMQs, Prime Minister's questions. And she's been doing quite well at that. But that's about it. I think her profile, and a journalist did a tweet over the weekend, Andrew Piers from the Daily Mail. He was saying, where is she this weekend in the Sunday papers? There was nothing from...
Yeah, so I think she's had rather a weak start, actually. I must admit, I think she's had a pretty weak start. I don't think she's displayed her vision. I don't think she's laid that out at all in terms of what she would do if she were Prime Minister. She's not clarified that big question over her before she was elected, which is, will she come out the ECHR? Because she obviously didn't do what Jenrick did, which was to say, yes, I will. She said she would kind of take it under advisement. Not a yes, not a no. And I hate those politicians' answers, particularly over something that is so fundamentally important to our whole immigration problem, which is the ECHR, and changing the Human Rights Act to kind of unshackle us from the ECHR. I don't think she's been particularly eloquent. I don't think she's landed many punches. And I think the problem for Kemi is that, of course, she's got a bit of a record of not being particularly strong on immigration. So she voted to lift the cap on immigration, and I think when she stands at the dispatch box and tries to land a blow on Keir Starmer about immigration, it's very easy just for him to punch straight back and just say, well, where were you for the last 14 years? Because your lot have done an appalling job. And he's right. Yeah. And so in that respect, and I guess the same would have been said of Jenrick, you end up then with the epitome of Punch and Judy politics. I don't think she's landing a glove.
She's got off to a slow start, I think it's fair to say. Robert Jenrick, I thought, had a good campaign to become leader. Unsuccessful, but I thought he had a good campaign, and I think he's continued that in the shadow justice role that he's done. But I also think that Reform will be pleased with the fact that the Conservatives chose Kemi instead of Jenrick. If they'd chosen Jenrick, it would have been harder for Reform. So Reform have leapfrogged the Conservatives in the opinion polls, in a couple of instances in the last couple of weeks, they've been ahead of the Conservatives in the opinion polls. It's a real three-horse race all around the mid-20s, Labour, Conservative, Reform.
Well, and assisted, I guess, by their new membership play, which is to reduce membership for youngsters. That would be interesting if Labour do actually force through votes for 16-year-olds, because I think that could potentially backfire on Labour, actually, and play into Reform's hands. And the fact that they've got a live counter, I think, haven't they, Reform?
Yeah,
on their website, showing how many members they've got. I don't know where it is right now, Dean. I don't know if you can tell us. 120-something thousand members, I think. We'll come back to you exactly what the number is, because it's a ticker on the Reform website. 120,549 at midday today. Let's get an update on that, because I think it's increasing at about 1,000 a day. And on that basis, they will soon overtake what we think is the Conservative Party membership. I mean, for a party that's only, 4 years old?
Absolutely incredible. You're exactly right. It's in the Times today in terms of Labour likely to get legislation through for 16-year-olds. I think I have mixed views about it, I have to say, but I think you're exactly right. Lots of those young people will turn out to vote Reform. In terms of the membership of Reform, the Tories have got about 131,000 members, just over. And they've got this counter, which I think is a really smart move.
But by the way, Dean's just telling me 122,876. That's up nearly 2,000 in an afternoon.
Well, yeah, I think it's about 3,000 in the last 24 hours, and it's continually increasing. Now, they were hoping to overtake the Tories on 131,000 by mid-January. I think with momentum, they could easily reach the target before the end of December.
How you use the word momentum.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah, another faction of the Labour Party that we don't want back.
That's right. I don't know what's happened to them, actually, but good riddance. But yeah, I think Reform could reach the target, 131,000, by the end of December. A scenario there, people are at home, they're having a few beers, they're not happy with the government,
and not happy with the Tories, because we've also got memories, and it was only 6 months ago that we were criticising, understandably and justifiably, the Conservative government, certainly the Conservative government of the previous 2 or 3 years. I mean, when it all started to collapse on the basis that the Conservative government weren't very conservative at all. So the uni party, as I think people are now calling them, which is basically Conservative, Labour, doesn't really matter who you vote for, they're both and all as bad as each other, which is Reform, I think, more than as a protest vote, but as a vote of some kind of hope that, they actually do represent the ordinary man and woman in the street, the ordinary member of the public that wants to see Britain be great again, that wants to see immigration curbed, that wants to see crime come down, that wants to see common sense restored to such things as identity politics. I hate that phrase. And the economy to be strong, business to be bolstered. We just want to go back to the good times, don't we, rather than this ideological Marxism that we have now, or pontificating pompous conservatism that we had 6, 7, 8 months ago. I think, genuinely, given what's happening naturally, it seems now, with Reform and their membership increase, not just how they're polling, but how they're starting to do in local elections, at council level, county council by-elections, district council by-elections. They're winning seats. Of course, they're not winning all of them. I was criticised for saying this on Twitter the other day. Saying, they're only winning 1 in 6. Hang on, think about that for a second. How many parties straight out the blocks can go and win that number of seats, whatever that number is? Now then add in the fact you've got Nick Candy, who's a very bright and successful British entrepreneur, alongside Nigel Farage and Richard Tice, now meeting and collaborating with Donald Trump and Elon Musk with money involved. Simon, I'm sure you're not going to disagree with what I'm about to say. We are about to see a political revolution in British politics. We're going to see a sea change. And some might criticise Elon Musk investing, donating or whatever. But frankly, most of you will surely agree that no matter what the outcome, we have to see that. We have to sweep British politics clean. We have to do what Donald Trump talked about in 2016. We've got to drain the British political swamp of these selfish non-entities that seem to be set on destroying Britain for their own ends. We've got to see that happen. And if that means that we have to do this by way of reform sweeping the board, then I'm afraid that's what's got to happen.
Yeah.
We've got to take a break. We're going to be back to talk about the BBC, one of our favourite subjects. Be back in a sec.
It's a worrying sign, and Germany has suffered a number of attacks recently, and I think people are quite rightly very upset about the whole issue of huge numbers of immigrants coming into the country. Most, of course, are very peaceful, but a percentage of those will cause all sorts of issues, and cities across Germany, across Europe, are seeing that in real time.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Russell Quirk. This is Talk. I'm in for Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm here till 10 o'clock. Joining me for, well, the next couple of minutes is Simon Danchuk. And actually, I'm glad you're still here because Dan from Kent has just responded to your response. And he says, I totally understand the inept civil service of centrist politics, and I absolutely have no disrespect for Simon. He's a good man. I just don't know why he wasn't a Tory. Answer.
Well, yeah, fair enough. Well, I was more of a social democrat, though I do think I've shifted more to the right in recent years. And some people would say that happens as you get older. But one or two of the big issues for me...
Is there hope for Keir Starmer yet?
No, I think he's a lost cause. But illegal immigration, a big issue for me. And we've had a number of governments failing to tackle that, and I feel very strongly about it. Britain's a really fair country, and there's so much unfairness about illegal immigrants coming over in small boats, living it up in hotels and being looked after. It's just wrong, and I feel so strongly about that.
So my wife's an immigrant. Your wife's an immigrant.
Yes.
So I'll tell you how my wife feels about this. She comes from Slovakia.
Yeah.
She might even be listening to this because she's picking up her mother from Stansted Airport for Christmas right now. Hello, Babka, if you are listening. And what she says is, look, I had to jump through hoops to get here, and I got here, had a job, paid into the system, paid tax. And for others to be able to come along kind of without there being any checks and balances, without there being any filter, sticks in the throat because that's not the way that things should be done. So I don't know how Coco feels.
Yeah, exactly the same. We feel very strongly about it. Coco, who's Rwandan, came over in August last year. She's been working ever since, works really hard. We had to pay, quite rightly, several £1,000s into the NHS. We have to earn a certain amount of money. And she was refused initially. We had a real fight to be able to get the visa for her to be able to come here. So that was a really tough challenge. And as I pointed out at the time, it's easier to come here illegally than it is for love. It's much easier to come here illegally. And that's just not acceptable. And we're talking thousands upon thousands of people. And that's what I think has made me perhaps more right-wing than what I traditionally was.
Talking about things that aren't acceptable, what's your view on the BBC? Defund it?
Oh, well, yeah, no, I've always held this view. I've been consistent on it. I think the TV licence is a draconian tax. It's the least progressive tax, so whether you're rich, poor, whatever...
And it is a tax.
Yeah,
I remember having an argument on this very station with a presenter that is no longer on it about the BBC licence fee, and I called it a tax, and that particular individual remonstrated with me that it was not a tax. It was almost a kind of voluntary thing. But when it is a mandatory licence fee that you pay even if you do not watch the BBC, if you watch any other channel on your television other than the BBC, you still pay the licence fee of whatever it is now, £167 a year, whereby you pay it without having any say in output or quality. There's no accountability, there's no scrutiny. That, I think, is wrong. And it was of its day, I guess, in the 1950s, whenever the BBC was first conceived, as a news organisation to provide, I mean, this is laughable now, but a balanced view of all things going on the planet from a news perspective. Well, of course, now, the BBC, of course, is roundly criticised, if nowhere else but on talkTV, for being just a hodgepodge of hypocrisy, really, and political agendas of the left, let's be honest about it. But of course now there's an increasing number of people not paying their licence fee. Something like 500,000 people in the last 12 months have decided not to pay. Now some of them will be watching the BBC and not paying. Some of them will be not watching the BBC, not wanting to have anything to do with it and not paying their licence fee. So in the last day or two, the BBC decided to issue a document, a letter, which they sent to people that they believe should have a licence fee, but that do not. And those watching on YouTube now will be able to see this. Effectively what it said is, hi, are you at home on Christmas Day? To which I suspect the answer to most people is yes, and my entire family will be around, and it'll be quite busy. Well, actually, and I'm paraphrasing here just for the sake of making a point, what the BBC licence enforcement police decided to do was to threaten to pop round to enforce upon your licence on Christmas Day. Now, how harassing, how intimidating, how disgraceful, frankly, is that letter should go out. Now, I will qualify this, that there has been a statement that has been made by the BBC after sparking this absolute outrage. A TV licensing spokesman said, these letters were sent in error. We apologise to anyone who received one. There will be no visits on Christmas Day. So that literally that was the so-called apology. How on earth does an official letter go out to tens of thousands of people threatening to visit them on Christmas Day in error?
That's just not true, is it? They were being heavy-handed.
Who do they think they are?
Absolutely.
They're just, I mean, to be clear, this is not, a government, this is not like the Ministry of Defence, this is not the police. This is just a media organisation threatening people, particularly pensioners, perhaps people that can't afford their TV licence, threatening them that they're going to come round on Christmas Day and disturb their family day to nick 167 quid from them. How dare they?
That will have caused a lot of distress to a lot of people, in actual fact. People of different ages, people who are unsure about the situation, not sure whether they've paid, etc. that would have caused distress, and they don't even have the courtesy to apologise properly. It's not an error. They were trying to pressure people into signing up and spending money on this draconian tax. That's reality.
Well, they've only issued this statement because they've been caught out.
Yeah, totally.
Because they didn't realise this was going to get into the hands of the media like us. And I tell you who else has railed about this is your friend Rupert Lowe, who's the Reform MP for Great
He's very good, actually.
He's very,
really
very good.
Yeah.
Someone's just texted, actually, can I just say. Hi, Russell, great show, thank you. I'm listening to Simon, and I think he would make a great Reform candidate.
Oh, thank you.
Is this something you have thought of? Do you want to tell them?
Well, I did stand in the Rochdale by-election for Reform, didn't I? Yes. Which was quite an experience. We had death threats and all sorts, which still need to be resolved. Yeah, it was
really?
quite
still
serious.
ongoing.
Yeah.
That's very serious. This is John in Essex. Reform has the values that align with working class folks, as well as being tough on immigration. Be interested to hear what he has to say. Will you stand again?
Undecided. We were talking about my wife. She was shocked at the death threats that were received during the Rochdale by-election. Genuine, not least coming from Rwanda. I suspect if you get a death threat in Rwanda, it's pretty serious. It's pretty serious. And this was serious enough. I have to give credit to Richard Tice. Actually, he had immediately, because it was a short 4-week campaign. He had some security guys there. He looked after as well. But it was a pretty atrocious by-election campaign. Yeah, put my wife off me standing.
Yeah, I bet it did. But you're taking it under advisement.
Yeah. Considering.
Okay. Well, look, you need to go because you're only supposed to be here till 8, so
yes.
I really appreciate you staying.
No, it's good to be here.
No, it's really, really good to see you, and have a very, very, very Merry Christmas to you and Coco, and hope to see you in the pub again soon. We had a nice night out, didn't we, and a nice drink. In fact, we've had 2.
We had the Clarence as well. We were in the Clarence on Dover Street. We bumped into Andrew Piers. That was a good night.
Yes, that was very revealing. Yeah. And then we went to the launch of a think tank, didn't we?
St James's, that were very posh.
Bumped into Nigel Farage, Liz Truss, who else was there? David Starkey, John Redwood, Dan Wooten, of course. Lots and lots of very interesting people. Very interesting people. So, well, you're one of those for sure. Look, Merry Christmas. Thank you. Until next time. We're going to take a break. Back after this.
On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Yes, I've been with Simon Danshuk for the last hour or so. That was interesting. Hopefully you thought it was too. Got lots of calls coming in, lots of texts, and particularly about Christmas movies. I mean, it just seems to have motivated you, actually. I guess because you've been watching them over the last few days and certainly will be over the next few days and, yes, I guess up to New Year even. And what does constitute a Christmas movie? Now, lots of people are texting in saying, oh, Wizard of Oz and Sound of Music and so on. I mean, look, I know you watched them as Christmas movies as a kid, but they're not Christmas movies. They were just movies that were on at Christmas. It's a bit like saying The Great Escape with Steve McQueen is a Christmas movie. It's not, is it? That was about prisoners in a German prisoner of war camp. I mean, come on. So, to me, here's the definition of a Christmas movie. Obviously, it has to be set at Christmas with a Christmassy type background, and it has to have an element of feel-good factor, particularly if there's a bit of romance or whatever. And that is why the #1 Christmas movie of all time, by my contention, disagree with it, argue with it all you like, is Love Actually. It's a brilliantly written piece by Richard Curtis, of course, and makes you feel good, I think, and actually quite empathetic. The way that they start off with the whole thing at Heathrow Airport and it being about, you know, no matter what's going on in the rest of the world, when it comes to particularly Christmas time, you know, life is about love. Look, let's have a look at this. This is a clip of said film.
Christmas is the time to be with the people you love. Merry Christmas.
Lovely. True love lasts a lifetime.
I want for Christmas.
Lots and lots of happy endings. And I know that's maybe not reality, but when it comes to Christmas, it is, surely. And then we've got Home Alone. I mean, Home Alone, I think, was absolutely groundbreaking. It was absolutely about Christmas. The fact that a kid gets left home at Christmas, hence the Home Alone. Watch this. Whet your appetite.
Well, what else could we be forgetting?
Our troubles will be ours.
Kevin!
Home Alone.
Police in the northern suburbs are on the lookout for a pair of burglars who are calling themselves the Wet Bandits.
We know that you're in there.
It's Santa Claus and his elf.
Brilliant. And only just slightly less brilliant, because I do think Home Alone 1 wins between Home Alone 1 and 2. Home Alone 2. Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. And actually, particularly Christmas Eve, because Christmas in New York, I don't know if you've experienced it, is a wonderful, wonderful place to be at that time. Second only to London, of course. And then The Holiday, very, very soppy, I know. But again, Christmas Eve, there's snow and Christmas decorations and old pubs and romance and everything. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Iris and Amanda are in exactly the same place.
Where do I want to go? By myself? Depressed at Christmas.
Just 6,000 miles apart.
Home exchange. We switch houses, cars, everything. Bingo. I need you to answer this.
Are there any men in your town?
Perfect.
Now, I'm one of these people that can't watch movies over and over again, with very, very few exceptions. Non-Christmas movies, and by the way, it is a non-Christmas movie that I can watch over and over again, is The Italian Job. And it's always on at Christmas. It's not a Christmas movie. But I have watched Love Actually several times. Yes, I'm an old soppy romantic. The same with Home Alone, Home Alone 2. My kids have watched it over and over again. The same with The Holiday. Turning to some texts, actually, there have been some good suggestions. I've got one here which I think is anonymous, but I don't know why it's anonymous. I don't know why they should be ashamed of themselves, because these are good shouts. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, that's a good one. Scrooged, both funny, feel-good and proper Christmas films. Yes, I agree. Let's see if Paul from Horsham agrees. I suspect we might have a bit of a falling out here, though. Paul, thanks for calling Talk. What's your favourite Christmas movie to make my 5th best in my pecking order this evening?
Right, OK. Hello, Russell.
Hello, Paul.
I think my typical Christmas is children, as young can be, up to whatever age. Holiday is probably the best out of your 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets a little bit sexy in there. There's a lot of snow, but,
it's
children
romantic,
might think...
Paul. It's romantic.
Yeah, not sexy, but...
Christmas is about romance.
Yeah, a 5-year-old wouldn't know about that.
No, okay.
I would go for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. You know that, I know, you know.
Paul, how is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
The only thing that's missing...
How's that a Christmas film?
The only thing, because... Okay. Because there's no knives, there's no guns, there's no violence, no fisticuffs. It is just Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But the only thing is...
But it's not based at Christmas at all.
There's no snow. I admit there's no snow.
Well, I'm not sure there has to be snow for it to be a Christmas film. I mean, we haven't had a white Christmas for decades, I don't think, have we, in Britain?
I know.
So, look, I agree. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is a film that I grew up with. I'm still scared of the child catcher. So if I watch that film, when he rolls into that square... it's horrible, isn't it? I can't remember what the actor's name was. I'm sure he's long since departed, unfortunately, but what an amazing character. It's probably one of the most fearsome characters in movie history that I, as a 57-year-old, it still sends a slight shiver down my spine when he gets out, you know, jangling his bells, saying, come on, children, ice cream, lollipops. Robert Helpman, I'm reliably informed, is his name. What a superb character actor. So I get all that. Brilliant film.
Can I just add one thing to this?
Yes.
There is a pub that I used to frequent. She's just sold it. She had a lot of artefacts and what have you, and one was the communication equipment that was in the car. There was with the windy handle.
What, in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang itself?
Yes.
Really? What, original from the movie?
That was bought at auction, probably Denby's auction near Dorking in Surrey, and it was authenticated, whatever you call it.
Authenticated, yeah.
Yeah, and the landlady got a phone call from the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang fan club and invited her and her husband
Is there actually
to
such a
London.
thing, Paul? Is there a Chitty Chitty Bang Bang fan club? That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So you think Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is more of a Christmas film than Home Alone or Home Alone 2?
Right.
Do you?
I think... Yeah, I do. But
what about Sound of Music? It's the same thing, isn't it?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
What about The Great Escape?
Yeah.
About The Wizard of Oz?
I love it. I love The Great Escape. But I'm not a 5-year-old.
Yeah, but Paul, hang on. Apart from the fact they're on at Christmas and have been for decades, what is Christmassy about them?
What? Sorry, what is
Christmassy about them?
The Great Escape? Nothing.
There you go. But that's in the same category as The Wizard of Oz and The Sound of Music. It's just we think they're Christmas films, like Die Hard. This is a very controversial view. Die Hard, again, great film, but not a Christmas movie. Just because it was set at Christmas doesn't make it a Christmas movie, even though most people would seem to disagree with me. In fact, I've had several texts, and I'm sure there's some calls here that would seek to disagree with me. Yeah, you know, I'm just an old romantic.
Yeah, okay.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, is there?
We're all different.
See, I'm softer than people think, you see, under this hard exterior. As you can see, I like soppy, old Christmas movies. Paul, thank you. You make a fair shout, I think, with Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, one of the greatest films of all time. Still scares the life out of me. Are we taking a break now? I think we are. Yeah, OK. I'll be back after this. But keep your calls coming, 0344 499 1000, or text 87222. Agree with me, disagree with me, do let me know about Christmas movies. And when we come back, more of this very interesting stuff. I hope you'll agree. Bear with me. Back in 3 minutes.
She sees the state as the primary engine of growth, and it picks winners and it decides which are the most productive sectors of the economy. It's sort of like, you know, turning things on their head. That, you know, the way that Liz Truss would see things, you know, she would say, well, you roll back the state and you get the animal spirits going and you let entrepreneurs and the market take care of everything. They see things in the opposite way. What's very interesting is Liz Truss wasn't even allowed 5 minutes to see if her ideas would do any good.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is Russell Quirk in for Kevin O'Sullivan until 10 o'clock. So, yeah, lots of text messages, particularly, I mean, it seems the things that's really triggered you this evening in terms of callers and text is the question of the best Christmas movies. A few people disagree with me, lots and lots of people with their own views, a very funny one here from Donna in Birmingham. Donna, you're a hoot. My favourite Christmas film is Who's Home Alone in Downing Street, she said. It's definitely not Starmer the Granny Harmer. He's off on his jollies, living his best life. That's very, very funny indeed. Somebody else here that thinks it's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. And then somebody does disagree with me here on Love Actually, but this is sacrilege. Love Actually is a terrible film. Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and the best is The Apartment. How is The Apartment a Christmas movie? The 1960 film with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. It warms the Christmas cockle, says Sally in Islington. OK, fair enough. All right, well, let's see what Michael from Rochdale thinks. He hopefully is going to agree with me, but maybe not. Michael from Rochdale, thanks for calling.
Hi Russell.
Just had your former MP on. I don't know if you were listening to Simon Danchuk.
Yes, I was, yes.
What do you think of him?
I don't know. I think he seems to have better opinions than he used to have. We'll go that way.
He's grown up.
Yeah. But I'm the same. I voted Labour until 2015, so and then I went. But I do think the left's been pulled out from under my feet a little bit. I don't think I've gone massively to the right. I think the left have just gone mentally over to the left.
So you think the party's changed, the Labour Party?
Yeah, I think politics itself has changed. I think that left and right have moved to the left, and what was considered right-wing before is, you know what I mean? Left is so far left now, it's like a dot.
Well, and certainly now centre-right is seen as far-right.
Exactly, which is nonsense.
Yeah, of course it is. And there's been this quest to try and find the centre ground, which, believe it or not, some Conservative MPs still think that they should try to do in the run-up to the next general election.
Do they want to lose again?
Well, clearly so. Well, I have to say, I was talking to somebody the other night who I won't breach confidentiality by saying who it was, but let me just assure you they are a very, very senior Conservative, and their words to me were, the Conservative Party is finished. That's what they said to me.
I wouldn't disagree. My friend is very much, Conservatives need to die in order for us to repair this ridiculous country we're in.
Indeed, and I think that's what I was saying to Simon earlier when it comes to the tsunami, if you like, that's coming for reform. I mean, and almost if you don't necessarily even support reform, I think we all think that we need to have a thing. You may have heard in the past, Michael, of a thing called creative destruction, which is you have to tear something down to rebuild it. I think that's what happens. Yeah. That's what needs to happen to British politics. Do you agree?
100%. I voted reform, and just because it's different, just because it's a change, we need the other two. It's sort of like the Uni Party, isn't it? They're so similar in many ways, although Labour have shown themselves to be more ridiculous than the Tories were,
and self-serving. I mean, that's the thing, and I guess that there's always a human behaviour element. But I think, you know, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. My dad was a councillor, so I kind of grew up with politics. I was then a councillor myself between 2006 and 2015. And it seemed that, you know, people would actually genuinely get into politics for the right reason. They try and improve lives and change things and so on. But now it seems that it's literally just part of a career path to coming out the other side of politics to earn
and
money.
doing loads of work for big companies for loads of money.
Yeah. So we agree, but we might not agree on the best Christmas film, I hear, Michael.
I don't think we do, no.
I'm disappointed because you and I are about to be mates.
It is a Christmas film. It's not a particularly surprising thing, but Die Hard.
Tell me why.
And my argument is...
Please convince me.
So basically, it's set at Christmas. There's lots of Christmas carols. There's the Christmas music runs through it and is so important to it. But everyone considers Home Alone a Christmas movie, right? Die Hard and Home Alone are basically the same film. It's family gets torn apart, and then one of them has to violently defeat the bad guys in order to reunite the family. It's the same story.
Michael, are you recounting all of your Christmas days over the last few years? Is that what happens in your family then?
No, but what I'm saying is, if you consider Home Alone a Christmas movie, you have to consider Die Hard a Christmas movie, because they're both. Neither of the stories are about Christmas. They're about the spirit of the time, and they're about people being together at Christmas. They're about togetherness and reuniting people, which is what Christmas is all about.
And winning over terrorism.
Obviously that.
Which is always the message that I've learned about Christmas over the years. It's all about defeating terrorism.
It's the spirit. I think it's bringing people together. That's why they're both Christmas movies. They're set at Christmas and they're about bringing families together, which is what happens at Christmas.
I'm going
to go eat with my brother, and my mum's going to come round for tea, which she never. You know what I mean? So
you don't just think that you like a really good action movie. I mean, I could say the same as the Italian Job.
Yeah, no.
Really?
No.
What's the difference?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I don't
brings
think I've
people
watched
together.
Job that many
a gang
times.
of thieves.
Yeah, you're making a convincing argument, I've got to say, but I'm sticking with my guns. I think if you consider Home Alone a Christmas movie, then Die Hard is a Christmas movie, because they're basically the same story.
Okay, fair enough. Do you know what I love about this time of year is that the producer here, Dean, and I, we got together this morning and said, right, what should we talk about? And there's a lot of kind of negative news around, and the fact that obviously most news is negative, and we should all be worried about the state of the world and the state of Britain and so on. But we can actually have these debates that don't really mean anything, but hopefully a bit of fun, bit of tongue in cheek, and that I can pretend really, really matter. I'm not sure they really do. But what are you doing for Christmas, Michael? Tell us.
I'm having a 90-day aged rib of beef.
That sounds like it's off.
No, I wouldn't want it much more than 90 days, but it's absolutely from my local butcher.
Are you cooking?
Support local businesses.
As you should.
And it's wonderful.
As you should.
It's absolutely. We've had it 4 or 5 years in a row, and it's just the tastiest piece of meat.
The trouble is with butchers now, there aren't many in many British high streets, are there?
No, I'm really lucky in the sort of little town near Rochdale I live in. We've got 2 butchers in the town centre, like a little town of like, I don't know, 100,000, no, not even that, probably 60,000.
Yeah.
And there's 2 butchers, and a baker, which is brilliant. We don't, although the coal shop closed recently, which is a bit of a shame.
The coal shop?
Yeah, there used to be there was a shop where they sold coal for your fire, yeah.
When you say recently, was it 1920?
No, it was literally, I don't know, I think it closed down in October.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh dear, think of all that pollution to the planet, Michael. Outrageous.
Well, yeah, is that pollution, all that? Is that not just more...
I think it's called
more nonsense?
Keeping warm, which is something that a government might want to consider when it comes to our pensioners, don't you think?
Exactly. Maybe if they hadn't got rid of the winter fuel allowance, they could see a way that they could sell all that coal they've got.
Well, indeed. And look, if you weren't a former Labour voter, you'd definitely be a former Labour voter now, wouldn't you?
100%.
Yeah, Michael, well, look, I wish you a very, very happy Christmas. Good luck with that 90-day aged off beef. Hopefully it's not off. I'm sure it'll be fine. No, seriously, enjoy. Thanks for calling in. Back in a second to take more of your calls.
I spoke with His Majesty the King to request the dissolution of Parliament, and we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace to form the next government of this great nation.
Take a look at what happened immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack.
The time has come, and this surely is England's time. Williams, who scores, and Spain lead. Shot from distance is in. It is Cole Palmer. Low ball in, or far ball, slides it in.
An absolute killer of a goal.
I agree with the protest, but I don't think the violence was anywhere near necessary.
No, I mean, I don't think anyone, Nigel, would ever think that the violence was the answer at all.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
The Liberal left couldn't understand that this man could be anything other than the great newsreader, a man of integrity.
Is it possible in any way, shape or form that Keir Starmer didn't...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Russell Quirk in for Kevin O'Sullivan. We're going to talk to Simon Calder shortly with regard to yet more Christmas travel chaos, what's new. But first, we're going to talk to Kay from Welwyn Garden City, who has her own view on what the best Christmas film in the world is, I guess, not just British, because this is an American film, I think, that she's going to nominate. Kay, thanks for calling Talk.
Hello, is that actually you?
Actually who?
You, Russell.
Yes.
Oh, it's lovely talking to you.
And to you? Who do you think it was?
I don't know. You never know.
A kind of clone or a copycat or a facsimile of me. No, you or rather, you thought a producer. No, it's definitely me. You're on air. You're live on Talk.
Yeah, it's there's a film called Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds.
I was tipped off that you were going to mention Just Friends. I'd never heard of it, and I've just Googled it. Ryan Reynolds is fat in it, isn't he?
Yeah, he starts off like that, and he's like playing ice hockey and things like that, and he's a music producer. But it is such a funny film, the fights with him and his brother.
How many times have you watched it, Kay?
Oh, every year.
Every year? For how many years, dare I ask?
Well, I'm 59, so whenever it came out,
2005.
It's so good.
2005 it came out.
Yeah, it is really good. I would watch it. And his mother is the one that was in Airplane that played the air hostess in it. I think they called them then in that time.
No, right, Airplane. That's probably been banned now, isn't it? Airplane was very politically incorrect, if I remember.
Yeah, but it was still good.
Yeah, it was funny, but we're not allowed to have laughter and comedy anymore. We can't laugh at anybody's expense because, Kay, they might get offended.
Well, that's why you get DVDs.
Yes, yeah, true. or search YouTube for stuff that you used to be able to watch.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is very,
really
very funny.
That film, it's really good.
Yeah, I'm going to stick it on my list now. I'm not sure it makes my number 5. Do you agree with my top 4, though? Love Actually, Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2 and The Holiday. Do you agree?
No.
No? So you think Just Friends should be number 1?
Just Friends, Elf.
Elf, yeah, okay, fair.
I think they're my favourite too, actually.
What about Old School? Christmas Carol? The 1951 version? That's what's... someone's text to suggest that, but they haven't left their name. They just say Merry Christmas. I think Christmas Carol, the 1951 version or the 1999 version should be in the top 5. What's this? Lots of people that aren't putting their names on text. When you text Talk 87222, could you put your name afterwards? Because we don't know who you are otherwise. Someone, whoever it is, says one of the best seasonal films that leaves a warm-hearted glow that's hard to resist is The Christmas Miracle of Jonathan Toomey. starring Tom Berenger. Really, these are very, very obscure nominations, right
I've
from the
never heard
deepest
of that.
archives of Christmas stuff.
No, never heard of that.
No, well, maybe look, check it out and let us know next time. I'm back on tomorrow, actually, so maybe we can continue this conversation tomorrow. Okay.
You know
Kate,
what?
yes.
You know what though? Yesterday morning we actually watched A Christmas Carol because Pete, my partner, he loves the original Christmas Carol with Alistair Sim.
And it's very old, isn't it? It's even older than I am.
Yeah, but it was on colour.
In colour? Well, they've colourised it.
Yeah, they colour. We saw it yesterday morning. We watched it yesterday morning. It was in colour.
Yeah. What about A Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens?
Oh, that was the one I'm talking about.
Scrooge. Oh, that's the same one, yeah, Scrooge. But I'm
yeah.
thinking about Scrooge, which is the later one with Bill Murray, I think. That was pretty good.
Yeah, Scrooge was good, but I don't know. But I think the more recent they get, like I said, Just Friends is just brilliant. You've got to watch it.
Okay. Well, it's on my list. I've also noticed, I've still got the page open. One big redeeming feature of Just Friends is he drives a Porsche.
Oh, yeah, but you want to see what happens to the Porsche.
No, I don't, because I'm a Porsche lover, and if it gets hurt in any way, I will have to turn the film off immediately.
He doesn't get hurt.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it, Kay. Don't spoil it. Right, look, thank you.
You've really got to watch the film. You will absolutely love it.
Well, you've definitely sold it to me and to the rest of the audience. I suspect now this film is going to see a little uptick in viewing figures on Netflix or whatever it's on. Kay, thank you very much indeed, and have a brilliant Christmas. Really appreciate you calling. Thank you very much. Let's speak to Simon Calder now. So, from Christmas movies to Christmas chaos on our transport network. Simon, my friend, how are you?
Well, Russell, I do have to try and see if I can possibly have a say in this really interesting conversation. So I'm going to say number 3, Die Hard. Number 2, Love Actually. And number 1, in terms of not exactly a Christmas film, but a film that's shown every Christmas, or it was for decades while I was growing up, The Sound of Music.
Yes, again, I remember, you and I are a similar age, I suspect. I remember this growing up. It was on every Christmas. Bearing in mind, when
30s, yeah.
When you and I grew up, there was probably, actually in the early days of me growing up, there were no video recorders. There was only 3 channels. So, you know, when it came to Christmas, you kind of watched what you had to watch, because that was all there was. And it was, Great Escape, Wizard of Oz, Sound of Music, wasn't it? And they were the Christmas films. But again, this day and age, I'm not sure they actually qualify as Christmas films just because they were on at Christmas.
No, but they take me back to Christmas, and Sound of Music actually, I think, is the best travel film ever made. You just look at it and it is absolute Austria at its most glorious best. And
I think brilliant film apart from the Nazis. That got you. Right, look, let's talk about travel chaos. Yeah. Simon, I think you and I have had this conversation in the past at Christmas where we lament the fact that whether it be our roads, our rail networks or whatever, trains, planes and automobiles, it always ends in chaos. Why can't we get this right? And tell us exactly what's going wrong with our transport networks this year.
OK, well, let's do trains, planes, automobiles, and a little side order of ferries as well. So trains, it's basically how do we fix the fact that the UK rail network will be 200 years old next year, and it's showing its age, and we're relying very much on the network that the Victorians bequeathed to us. It's in a right old mess. So we've got, as you will appreciate, things we know about, and I'm going to give you the closure of St Pancras International going north to Leicester, Derby, Nottingham and Sheffield, plus really tricky for loads of commuters and people trying to get into London from southwest London. They've closed the main line from London to Southampton, so you now have to divert almost to Portsmouth and go round via the south coast. We knew that was going to be happening. And we know that from tea time tomorrow, Christmas Eve, trains will gradually start winding down, and there won't be any trains anywhere on Christmas Day. But then on top of that, you've got failures which happen the whole time. And I'm thinking here of the occasion when Folkestone today, there was a fire involving all the signalling cables and nothing ran. We've got similar problems due to weather in the far north of Scotland this morning and various other issues around the place. But the main message is that tomorrow is probably going to be quite a good time to travel by train. I'm not seeing strikes happening, and I think if you get going early enough to make sure that you'll finish your journey, you'll be all right. But then we get into all the Christmas network rail works, and that is going to mean that the two busiest stations in Britain, that's London Liverpool Street and also London Paddington, are not going to open on Friday along with the rest of the network.
This is Liverpool Street, my station, which I think is closed for a number of days, isn't it?
Well, it's if you don't get there by tea time tomorrow, you will find that it's not going to be open until the 2nd of January next year.
I'm working tomorrow night. How am I going to get home, Simon?
OK, you're probably going to be able to get an underground train to Stratford and then go on from there.
Elizabeth line. I'll somehow manage on. But, wow, OK, so if it's not strikes, it's engineering works. So that's just the trains. We've only just started.
OK, let's switch to the planes. It was absolutely miserable yesterday. What we saw was mass cancellations at London Heathrow, more than 100 flights grounded. That was simply because, and we're talking here about infrastructure, we do not have enough runways in southeast England. So we've got the busiest single runway airport in the world, which is Gatwick, which did all right yesterday and today, and then the busiest two runway airport in the world, that is Heathrow, and they had to reduce the so-called flow rate, the number of aircraft they could land. Normally these things are coming in every 80 seconds. If it's really windy, you have to extend that, and that means you can't have so many planes, which means you've got to start cancelling flights, and that's what we saw. So about 15,000 people had their plans torn up. After that, can you believe, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, all going perfectly well at Belfast City Airport, when suddenly a plane comes in, no passengers on board. It was a so-called positioning flight, has a very, very hard landing, and unfortunately the nose wheel breaks and the whole runway is closed for the rest of the day. Dozens more cancellations. So that was awful, but things have been going quite smoothly today, and I just hope that those thousands of passengers who were inconvenienced have been able to catch up.
Simon, can I just ask you a question about, that we see these images of planes coming into land. I mean, there was some literally this morning, planes coming into land at Manchester Airport, I think, where, the pilots are kind of struggling with the plane, and they're kind of, from left to right, and it all looks very, very kind of turbulent and so on. Is that genuinely a question of absolute pilot skill, or is there a huge element of technology where we see what's going on and we think, wow, that pilot's good, and by the way, it looks really dangerous, but actually really there's a whole load of technology at play that really means that the pilot's almost kind of sitting back in their seat, not having to worry too much about a landing, even in such turbulent, windy conditions?
Those pilots are very much not sitting back and pressing a button and say, oh, let's see what happens here. OK, so first of all, can I just tackle the issue of looking dangerous? There is no danger involved whatsoever. Pilots are trained to do this,
doesn't it? With the wings are tipping from left to right at all sorts of acute angles.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've been watching Big Jet TV. It's an amazing spectacle.
Sorry, Big Jet TV? What is that?
Yeah. But and this is where they use a really good telephoto lens, and it looks really spectacular and really concerning. And but there really is no risk. Pilots are trained to do this. They will, under their very good control, attempt to make a landing. If they think not going to get in safely, they will simply do a go around, and that means, as you will have seen, suddenly off you go. You go around, you have another go at landing, or maybe you divert to somewhere else. So it's spectacular, but it is completely safe. And yes, they are totally in control and deciding what to do and how best to cope with these conditions. But,
and still the safest form of transport.
Well, I'm at the moment drafting. I'm not going to count take anything for granted until for the next 8 days. But at the moment, as things stand, 2024 looks on a par with 2023 as the ultimate safe year for flying, with let's hope no fatal accidents involving passenger jets. Just extraordinary.
It is. It really is. I mean, particularly considering how busy our airspace is. Roads, Simon.
Okay, yeah. So people have survived today in terms of the various problems we were foreseeing on what the RAC called Manic Monday. That they've, it's been messy and so on. Actually, the motoring organisations say that tomorrow is going to be the big day for getaway journeys. The thing is, you won't be competing with very much, because today you actually had a fair amount of normal kind of commuting and delivery traffic. That will ease off. The very simple answer is to start off very early in the morning, and we're talking here about sort of 6 o'clock. Get your journey done by about 11s, and you can sit up, put your feet up, and spend the rest of the day with talk, or wait until about 4 or 5 in the evening. Once it gets dark, set off, and again you'll have a smooth journey. So that's trains, planes, and automobiles. The one thing which is really concerning is the ferries, for once, because loads and loads of people travel by car between Great Britain and the island of Ireland. And as you will know, the main link between Holyhead and Dublin, which carries far more than any other ferry route, is closed until the 15th of January because of Storm Dara damage. So therefore, lots of people have been going the northern route from Cairnryan in southwest Scotland across either to Larne or to Belfast. But unfortunately, the whole of the schedules yesterday, more or less, were wiped out because of yet more terrible weather. And that's left people scrabbling to try to find space on the few remaining sailings, to the extent that tonight Stena Line has said that they're putting on a special extra round trip, leaving Belfast and leaving Cairnryan at 11:30 at night on Christmas Eve. So yes, you'll get in at sort of 2 o'clock in the morning, but at least you will make it to your destination in time for the celebrations on Christmas Day.
So I'm getting the impression from you here, Simon, that this year's not as bad as previous years.
They're all different. And the good thing about Christmas Day being on a Wednesday is that basically people have had since last Friday to get their ducks in a row and get their travelling done. If Christmas is a Saturday or a Sunday, there's a lot more pressure on it. But there's always something that pops up from out of the blue. And actually yesterday it was this runway being blocked at Belfast City Airport. So here we are, another 26 and a bit hours to go before Christmas, and I hope that everybody who's travelling on Christmas Eve will get where they need to be. And actually there's loads of people travelling on Christmas Day. There's more buses running up and down the country. There's more flights going from UK airports than ever before. So lots of people are saying...
Simon, that would be all the people leaving Britain.
Oh, sure. And there'll be some arriving as well. And it's actually the tourists. I'm going to be in London, and I know that I'm going to meet thousands of people from abroad who don't believe that we kind of go into a kind of Christmas Day lockdown. And my campaign for next year is to get at least some tourist attractions to open, because in continental Europe there's lots of them. The ABBA Museum in Stockholm, the Rijksmuseum.
As I suggested to Simon Danchuk earlier on, it won't be long before Christmas is consigned to the annals of history, I suspect. Talking of Christmas, I'm kidding. I hope I'm kidding. Talking of Christmas holidays are normally quite expensive. Now, obviously, there aren't holiday companies here to defend themselves, but tell me if Christmas 2024 is relatively more expensive than other years, or is it actually more palatable this year to travel in terms of the cost of a package holiday?
Right, okay. Holiday prices and flight prices have been increasing relentlessly since the pandemic. So it's not great, but actually the fact, again, that it's you haven't suddenly got this huge concentration on a Friday or Saturday before Christmas means that things have spread out a bit. And there are some bargains to be found. So tomorrow, for instance, going from Edinburgh to Lanzarote, last time I checked, Jet2 would get you there and back, coming back New Year's Eve, for £100, which is an amazing deal. Right, but that is just for the flight. And the catch is that once you get to the Canaries, you will find that the entire contents of Northern Europe is on holiday there, and there isn't any room at the inn. However, let's all go on a camping holiday in the Canaries. That would be the way to deal with it. And as always, between Christmas and New Year, if you go out maybe Boxing Day, come back on the 29th or 30th, you're going to find some really good deals for city breaks in Europe. So there are still options around, but otherwise, apart from that, if you want some proper winter sunshine...
I was going to say, for those that want to go hot, where would you recommend in terms of places that are good value, not too overcrowded? Where would you recommend this year?
Well, those things are pretty mutually incompatible, but if you want guaranteed sunshine, there is nowhere short haul to beat Egypt. If you head
I went there last year, half the price of Dubai, half the price.
Yeah, exactly. It's nearer, it's cheaper. Many people would say it's much more authentic and friendlier as well. So
yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I'm not here to be an advert for the Egyptian tourist ball, but it was great. Lots of security, which at first I have to say is a little bit off-putting, but then you realise it's quite a benefit. Beautiful hotels, 5-star hotels that are much cheaper than most other places long haul. Brilliant service, great food. It was my kids actually, who go away quite a bit. My girls are 16, 15 and 15, so they've had a few holidays and a few nice holidays. Two of my daughters say that Egypt last year was the best holiday they've ever had.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely lovely. It's really good that teenage girls can enjoy it just as much as, dare I say it, middle-aged men and women.
Yes, no, indeed. Simon, look, thank you very much indeed. I know you've been on a bit on this channel over the last few days, and I'm sure you'll continue to be so, because you are the authority, you are the expert. Thank you, as always, for your undoubted experience. So, yes, Simon Corder, Merry Christmas to you. Right, we're going to be back in a sec after this break. More calls on the way. If you want to call, you can. Of course, we've got just over half an hour of the show left. 0344 499 1000. So give me a call on anything we've been talking about, really, whether it's the Church of England censoring Christmas carols, or whether Elon Musk should be contributing to reform to help along that nice little political revolution that I referenced earlier, or indeed, probably the most important issue of this evening is the most popular Christmas movies ever. You know my top picks, the likes of Love Actually, Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2 and The Holiday. I'm getting lots and lots of messages from people saying that they disagree with me. The Sound of Music keeps coming up. I mean, honestly, I don't know where you get this stuff from in terms of how The Sound of Music, someone in Switzerland in the summer running around the hills singing, is somehow a Christmas movie. It's about as Christmas movie as Wallace and Gromit, I would suggest. Anyway, 0344 499 1000. Back after this break with more of your calls.
She sees the state as the primary engine of growth, and it picks winners and it decides which are the most productive sectors of the economy. It's sort of like, turning things on their head. That, the way that Liz Truss would see things, she would say, well, you roll back the state and you get the animal spirits going and you let entrepreneurs and the market take care of everything. They see things in the opposite way. What's very interesting is Liz Truss wasn't even allowed 5 minutes to see if her ideas would do any good.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining me for the last half an hour or so. We're still on the subject, the very, very important subject of Christmas movies. Got a very, very interesting text here from Phil in Portsmouth who says, I'm a Christmas scrounge, maybe even a Scrooge, I think perhaps he means, and I hate all Christmas films. Having said that, Die Hard is not a Christmas film. Thank you very much indeed, Phil. My friend says otherwise, though. We have a pact that says whoever dies first, the other has to wear a T-shirt that agrees or disagrees that Die Hard is a Christmas film. What a lovely, lovely thought. What a lovely gesture between friends. Obviously, that's quite an important conversation between Phil and his mate there, and the fact that it's so important that, yes, they're going to have to demonstrate such with a T-shirt in the aftermath of one or other's passing. Kind of a bit depressing there. Anyway, let's have a look at some of these trailers again, shall we? Because I'm determined that I'm right. Love Actually, first of all. Have a watch and listen to this.
Christmas is the time to be with the people you love. Merry Christmas. Lovely.
True love lasts a lifetime.
All I want for Christmas is you.
That is so brilliantly cast. I mean, brilliantly written by Richard Curtis. Brilliantly cast, I think. Lots and lots of very, very amusing parts to that. But even though I don't like him very much as an individual when he starts parroting about politics, you have to admit that Hugh Grant, the dancing Prime Minister in Downing Street, is actually movie gold, isn't it? I mean, really fantastic. Another reason why it's my top pick. And number two, of course, is not Home Alone 2, but Home Alone 1, the original.
What else could we be forgetting?
Our troubles will be ours.
Kevin!
Home Alone.
Police in the northern suburbs are on the lookout for a pair of burglars who are calling themselves the Wet Bandits.
We know that you're in there.
It's Santa Claus and his elf.
Macaulay Culkin, absolutely brilliant in that. And then reprised, of course, in Home Alone 2, which some might argue is better. As I said earlier, I think the fact that it's set in New York at Christmas kind of gives it an even more kind of Christmassy, romantic type feel, because New York at Christmas is beautiful. Let's have a look at Home Alone 2 for a sec. And then just to get really slushy, The Holiday.
Iris and Amanda are in exactly the same place.
Where do I want to go? By myself? Depressed at Christmas.
Just 6,000 miles apart.
Home exchange. We switch houses, cars, everything. Bingo. I need you to answer this.
Are there any men in your town?
Perfect.
So come on, be honest, admit it, I'm right, aren't I? In that order, they're my top 4. Lots and lots of suggestions, lots of suggestions from you in terms of who you think is the number 1 movie, and therefore, I guess, which would qualify as being in my top 5. Suggestions include Christmas Carol, Wonderful Life, Nightmare Before Christmas, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Elf, of course, Scrooge, the Bill Murray one. Some people saying Die Hard still, but I wish you'd stop. And The Wizard of Oz, which definitely is not a Christmas movie. And I'll tell you something else that isn't a Christmas movie. Well, James from Norwich, thanks for calling. Tell us what your nomination is for Best Christmas Film.
Lethal Weapon.
Excuse me?
Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon, the Mel Gibson police movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
How is that a Christmas movie? Could you just justify that somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it starts off with Jingle Bell Rock playing over the beginning of the film. Right. The first action sequence is him in a place where they're selling Christmas trees.
You don't think you're stretching it a little bit here?
No. Bear with me.
Okay.
The whole arc of the movie is kind of like A Wonderful Life. He's a suicidal guy, and at the end of the film, he's embraced with his new family to the extent where he wraps up a bullet with a bow, which he was going to kill himself with, gives it to his new partner, and he's brought into their family to eat Christmas dinner with them. And if you watch the subsequent films, he basically becomes part of their family.
What a cheery Christmas image, wrapping up a bullet.
Well, he gratefully received it, and your assertion that Love Actually is a great Christmas film baffles me, because...
How? It's set entirely at Christmas. How can it baffle you?
Because half the intertwined stories are about people trying to commit adultery.
Well, no, it's about love in the end.
Not my sort of Christmas.
Do you know one we've missed, actually? What you said at the beginning of the call, we mentioned the word jingle. No one has mentioned Jingle All the Way, which I think is the Arnold Schwarzenegger one, where he tries to find the toy at the last minute, Turbo Man.
Never had the pleasure, I'm afraid.
That's actually a great film. I'm surprised no one has nominated that in all of the texts and the phone calls we've had. But so Lethal Weapon, you think that's the best? Any others in your top 5, James? What else are you going to... Are there Mission Impossible? Is that a Christmas film?
Bad Santa.
Band of Brothers. Is there a Christmas element to that because they're brothers and they get together at Christmas?
Again, never saw it, so I'll swage to your greater knowledge of Band of Brothers being a Christmas film.
Come on, we've got to have a bit of fun with this, James, haven't we? Come on.
All right, Scrooged.
But there's Scrooge, isn't there? Which I guess is part of the whole Dickens original Christmas Carol, and then Scrooge, the Bill Murray one, which I actually think was very, very good. That's been largely overlooked. We've had a couple of nominations.
Scrooge with a D, definitely one of my favourites. One film which is an absolutely dreadful film, but I still watch it every year, is the Santa Claus movie with Dudley Moore, but it just reminds me of when I was a child.
Dudley Moore, crikey, yeah, whatever happened to him? Him and Peter Cook. Although Peter Cook, I suppose, wasn't in the movie. But, yes, of Arthur fame, wasn't he? Probably more famous for that. I think there were a couple of them.
Derek and Clive is more... Well, yeah, but you probably can't mention that on...
No, can I say, can you imagine Derek and Clive now being broadcast? It's a bit like Till Death Us Depart or Bernard Manning. I mean, no one will be having it, would they?
I would recommend to anyone to go on YouTube and look at Derek and Clive.
Yeah.
If they don't mind certain swear words.
I mean, on that point, I mean, someone said to me recently, actually, that when it comes to kind of certain things, like Till Death Us Depart, Love Thy Neighbour, that they've been kind of ostracised from media now. You just don't see them broadcast anymore because they have, a right-wing element that should be censored. But actually, when it was written as almost, a mockery of those that were bigoted. So it's almost been banned, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at Alf Garnett, then yeah, he was the one who was being ridiculed.
He was the idiot, right? And it was a bit like Rising Damp. Do you remember that with Leonard Rossiter? He was the fool, right? And he was the racist, bigoted landlord that everyone was laughing at. The audience were laughing at him, not with him, and yet that stuff couldn't be broadcast anymore.
No, but I mean, it goes all through comedy. If you look at something like The Office, the person who was being ridiculed was David Brent. So, but yeah, I mean, that's just how comedy works. But then people misconstrue it over the years, thinking that it was the other way around. But, you know, you can't legislate for stupid people, really, can you?
Well, no, but some people are trying to. And that would be the current Labour government, in my opinion, in terms of censorship and doorstepping journalists or whatever, and trying to control the narrative. I think that's exactly what the Labour government are trying to do, actually, is to regulate for stupid people.
Yeah, well, if he wasn't so dangerous, I think Keir Starmer would be a very good quality comedic character.
But without laughing or smiling at all. I mean, he's a bit like a political Jack D.
I think that's a very good way of putting it. But
are you not a fan? Not of Jack D, but of Keir Starmer?
I don't think there could be less of a fan of Keir Starmer in the country, and that's saying something.
Have you ever been a Labour voter, James?
Absolutely not. Even back when I had my first access to voting, when Tony Blair got in, I was living in Manchester at university, and I went all over Manchester trying to find the polling stations. I didn't get the card through to make sure that I didn't vote for Labour even back then.
Yeah. So who do you vote for? Do you mind me asking? Have you changed your vote? Are you Tory now, Reform?
Definitely Reform. I just hope within the next 5 years they flesh out their manifesto, so it's not just based on a one issue policy. But I think with what's happening with people like Nick Candy, where the more money they get, they're going to be able to actually grow as a party. That hopefully that will come, but. Yeah, so...
But they did have, I mean, they laid out in what they called their contract, and actually I was quite impressed that Reform in the general election called it not a manifesto but a contract, on the basis that if you tell people you're going to do things and they therefore vote for you on that basis, then you should, funnily enough, do the things that you said you were going to do, which obviously is entirely the opposite of what Keir Starmer and the Labour government have done. I mean... They did lay out a number of things around not just immigration, but around the economy, you know, lifting tax thresholds, around foreign aid, around crime, defence, abolishing net zero. I mean, they were pretty comprehensive, I think, in terms of laying out what they would do if elected. So I don't buy, and I know you're not saying this particularly, James, but I don't buy anybody that says that they're a one-trick pony when it comes to politics.
No, but I mean, they're still in their infancy, so you just need to see how it pans out. It's very easy to say you're going to do this, that and the other when you're in opposition, but when you actually get in, as obviously Labour are finding out, it's a completely different kettle of fish. So
yeah, very much so. From kind of sixth form political ideology to running the country, yeah, they're very, very different things. You may have heard earlier on, James, we were talking about Elon Musk and obviously his involvement with Reform, and the fact that Nick Candy and Nigel Farage flew over to Mar-a-Lago last week to presumably take some learnings from Elon Musk. Do you think Musk should be allowed to donate to Reform in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it falls within the rules. I mean, he has business interests over here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I mean, I've always found it a bit galling how political parties are funded anyway, because, you know, you're not going to give millions of pounds to a political party and not expect anything in return, you know, whether it be the trade unions or whether it be business leaders. And I think politics is inherently pretty corrupt,
yeah,
to a greater or lesser extent. I mean, you know, it's very unlikely that somebody's going to be so altruistic that they're going to give a significant amount of money and expect nothing in return for it. But that's just the world we live in.
Indeed, but I do think it needs something to bring about that political tsunami that I was talking about earlier. James and Norwich, thank you very much. We covered a lot of ground there, mate. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking more about Christmas films and, you know, my favourites. What are yours? 0344 499 1000. And also the whole Reform membership thing. I think they're up to 123,222 as we speak in terms of their total membership. Not far away now. I think only 6,000, what's that? 778 is my back of a fag packet maths away from what they think is exceeding the Conservative Party's membership. By the way, a party that's been around for what, 250, 300 years? Wow, what do you think of that? Back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
So, yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining me. Sorry, got some people talking in my ear here. Thanks for joining me on Talk. I'm here for the next 15 or 16 minutes. Then I'm handing over to Phil. Dave, more of your calls, but also a text I've just had from someone that I know quite well. Happens to be my sister, who wants to argue with me about the 5 best films at Christmas. She says, in a strange order here, number 1, The Holiday, number 2, Miracle on 34th Street, number 3, Elf, number 4, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. But then she says, this is going to be a controversial thing to say on this channel. Did you know, she said, Piers Morgan is in Home Alone 2? I'll leave that there. Those of you that know. Google it, you'll see. Sorry, Piers, and he gets really irritated when people say that, and I'm kind of not surprised, really. Right, let's talk to Wayne in Lincolnshire, who I think wants to talk about Christmas movies, funnily enough. Hey, Wayne.
Hiya, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. So do you know what I mean about Piers Morgan being in Home Alone 2?
I do, actually, yeah.
Go on, explain.
Well, he's just got just a small part as...
No, he looks like the pigeon lady, doesn't he?
Well, I've been called that today, Ross.
Yeah, the lady in Central Park, the homeless lady with the pigeons all over her head. It does look a bit like Piers Morgan, although he gets very, very irritated when people mention it, apparently. So, sorry. But it's Christmas, so we can, apparently, until I get told off in the morning for mentioning it. Wayne, what did you want to say, mate?
Well, I changed my mind since I just talked to your producer. Now, Christmas for me is Michael Palin.
Michael who, sorry?
Palin.
I thought you were going to say Parkinson. That's going back at Michael Palin. Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I've changed my mind. It's got to be Wallace and Gromit.
You think Wallace and Gromit is a Christmas movie?
Oh, God, just read that.
They're not even real people, are they? One's not even a person, it's a dog.
We all like to escape to a bubble sometimes, but you know what I mean.
Do you know what? That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, come on, give me that. Wallace and Gromit, it's about Christmas.
But you were going to say The Wizard of Oz, weren't you?
Well, I did. I religiously watched that, and I watched the hell out of it, and I've now I look at it, and this is going to sound so awful because it's part of my childhood, it seems so corny. I did get that corny.
But when was it filmed? It was made in like 1948 or something, wasn't it?
I think it was earlier than that.
Judy Garland's mother was the star. I mean, again, I wouldn't characterise it as a Christmas movie apart from the fact that it was played every Christmas, I think, during the 1960s, 70s and 80s. But it's kind of the ultimate feel-good movie, I suppose, in the end. And it's got kind of peril and a bit of kind of bad stuff in it, isn't it? But then ultimately, they all trot off into a nice place together. So that's what Christmas is all about, isn't it?
And also, the shoes just sold this year for 5.2 million.
What, the original shoes?
Yeah, the
Judy Garland shoes.
Yeah.
The ruby slippers. 5 million. Who bought them? Elton John?
I don't know. They don't disclose that, do they? I'd like to know, though, but...
I'd like to know. I mean...
Wallace and Gromit and Michael Palin, then.
So Michael Palin, what do you mean he's train journey stuff?
I do, yeah. I just love it. It's my wind-down TV, and when the kids were screaming around, could just switch off.
Do you know the problem with Michael Palin now, though, Wayne? He's just a bit too serious, isn't he, compared to what he was?
He's got a bit all PC now, yeah.
So, Simon Danchuk was saying earlier on, he's become more right-wing as he's got older. Michael Palin's just become a lot more boring as he's got older.
Yeah, I can't fault you. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Wayne, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
Great contribution. Christmas. Thanks a lot. Have a nice Christmas, mate. Let's speak to David in Newcastle. David.
Hi, Russell.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, mate?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm very well. What did you want to say?
Oh, good. No, you're on about these Christmas songs. Honestly, the songs of music are Great Escape, Die Hard. They're not Christmas songs.
Of course they're not, David. I'm going to give you a round of applause, David, for being so sensible. They're not. How can they be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a Summer Holiday by Cliff Richard was on last week.
What, as a Christmas
film? Is that a Christmas song as well?
It's literally a summer film. It's called Summer Holiday.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It was on a week ago.
Yeah. So what's up there where you are in the northeast? What's the kind of favourite pick as a proper Christmas film up there? Do you think?
A Christmas film? Well,
do you like the old stuff?
Home Alone. I'd say Home Alone.
Home Alone.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't mind? I guess what we call mid-century stuff, because I think the new stuff now has just become just a bit too kind of cheesy, tacky, and a bit kind of thrown together. And there's, 4 or 5 or even 10 new Christmas movies made every year, and they're just all a bit samey. Then you've got the really old stuff.
To be honest with you,
but the stuff that was made in the kind of 80s and the 90s, I think, is the proper stuff. So, yeah, like Home Alone, Home Alone 2. So basically, you agree with my list. Love Actually? Is that a bit of you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Not too soppy for a man from Newcastle? Hardened and tough as you are up there?
I don't know about that. I don't think we're that tough, but no. No, I mean, White Christmas was a good film as well, what was that, the 50s, 60s? I can't remember now.
51, I think.
51, really? It was before I was born. No, just honestly, these.
It has to have snow in it. It has to have presents. It has to have kind of a feel-good thing, doesn't it? I think we're. But
that's what people want at Christmas.
I think so. I think so. And all the other films, The Great Escape's a brilliant film, the same as The Italian Job. Yes, The Wizard of Oz. Yes, The Sound of Music. But yes, they happen to be films shown at Christmas rather than Christmas films. David, have a great Christmas, and yes, hopefully you'll call again over Christmas and into the new year. Right, we're going to take a break. More calls after this. I'm Russell Quirk. Got 11 minutes of me, then you've got the wonderful, the fabulous, because I can see him, Phil Dave, coming up at 10.
I understand the woman's frustration and anger because, at the election, they made a whole host of promises and then they're backtracking on them. They also gave the impression by posing in photographs with possibly women that they were on their side. And the public get really angry when they see these promises being broken. They said they would not affect, bring out tax rises, and yet here we are seeing these national insurance contributions going up.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
OK, so some of your texts about Christmas movies is just getting silly now. Sensible one here from Trish says, my all-time favourite Christmas movie is Bad Santa. I'll be watching it tomorrow. It's my annual Christmas Eve film. But then Phil says, this is funny, my favourite Christmas movies are Star Wars 4, 5 and 6, Rogue One and the original Alien movie. Which just about sums up my point, doesn't it, about Great Escape, Wizard of Oz, Sound of Music and so on being apparently great Christmas movies. OK, let's see what Angela in Grimsby has to say about her favourite Christmas movie of all time. Angela, I presume you're not Angela Grimsby from Grimsby?
I'm from Grimsby.
But not Angela Grimsby from Grimsby. That was my mistake. What's the best film, Angela?
It's got to be White Christmas.
The old 1954 version.
I just remember watching it as a child and thinking everything was romantic and everything was going to be perfect. It was a beautiful film.
And you watch it still now?
I have. I've got the DVD.
How many times have you watched it?
About 7 or 8 times.
Have you? I've got some facts.
Not recently, though. Not recently, but
I bet you watch it again in the next few days now, won't you?
Yes, I will.
Yeah. Do you know they made it on a budget of £2 million, or $2 million, and it brought in something like $12 million, which today, adjusted for inflation, would be $137 million. Even that's not that much money, is it, by modern day standards? But and it's probably one of the best known films ever, let alone at Christmas.
Oh, it is. It was beautiful. I think it was just a beautiful film. The other one I like was Jack Frost as well.
Jack Frost, yeah. What about modern stuff, like really modern stuff? Do you like the modern stuff?
No, they're too sloppy for me. Like, you can watch Channel 4 and things like that, and they've got all these stupid romantic things on, and no, it's a bit too much for me. I don't like it.
A bit silly about silly Santas, bad Santas and whatever. But, I mean, some of them are good. I think Bad Santa actually is a good film. But, anyway,
yeah,
Angela.
I did like Bad Santa. Yeah, that was good.
Angela, you're a star. Thank you very much. Have a brilliant Christmas from all of us at Talk. Thank you. Let's go to Sarah in Sheffield.
Hello.
Hello. How are you, Sarah?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Very, very well. I'm getting to the end of the show and I'm back tomorrow, 7 till 10.
Excellent.
So, what do you want to suggest?
I want to suggest Elf and Battle of the River Plate.
Battle of the River Plate. I didn't see any tinsel, I don't think, in Battle of the River Plate, Sarah. Can you point me to any Christmas trees or Santas in Battle of the River Plate?
There is absolutely a Christmas scene in Battle of the River Plate.
A Christmas scene?
Yes.
Is there? Can you just talk us through it?
I will. Can I ask my husband to join in? And he will talk you through it.
The more the merrier.
Go for it.
Hey, Russell.
Hello, Mr. Sarah. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very well. So enlighten me as to why Battle of the River Plate is somehow a Christmas movie.
Yeah, no, it really is. I forget which battleship it was.
Can I just say so? It's a good job you both agree on this, otherwise this would be quite the domestic battle, I suspect. So, sorry, go on, explain.
Yeah, it's good. I told us to say this. But yes, on the Battle of the River Plate, one of the British cruisers gets shot up, and one of the German battleships saves the guys, and it's Christmas, and they bring, I think it's not the Bismarck, it's the Scharnhorst or something, and they bring out all the Christmas decorations and
Okay. So that particular kind of shooting incident and the fact that there's it happens at Christmas, does that actually make it a Christmas film, do we think?
Well, yeah, because it's at Christmas, because they bring out all the Christmas decorations.
Okay, so people getting shot, boats sinking. Okay. What about, didn't you mention to the producers A Muppet's Christmas Carol? I think that's a bit more appropriate.
Yeah, I did.
That'd be my wife. I'll pass it back on.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, certainly I did.
I love that. Is there anyone else there that you want us to talk to? I mean, if there's anybody else there, stick them on.
Do you want to speak to the dog?
Well, it depends if they've got a favourite Christmas movie on it.
It's It's not very conversational, but yeah.
Okay. Look, Sarah and your husband, you've been a brilliant call. I've got to go now because Mr. Phil Dave wants to tell me his Christmas movies now before he takes over at 10 o'clock. Sarah and Co in Sheffield, have a great Christmas from all of us at Talk. Thank you. Mr. Phil Dave, I don't know if you've been following this last 3 hours. It's been a bit crazy, really.
It has. It's amazing. I mean, I was very much enjoying listening to some of those suggestions. I'm going to be a little bit cliche, if I'm honest with you.
Go on.
It's going to be the Home Alone for me. It's going to be...
1 or 2 or 3 or 4. You know, there's a fourth. In fact, there's a fifth.
Actually, I think there's 6, can you believe now? I'm fairly sure I'm right with that. I think there's now 6 Home Alone movies in total, because Disney Plus have just done one that's called Home Sweet Home Alone.
No.
Yeah, so that's I think
awful.
That's the 6th version.
I suggest we avoid that.
Well, it's got one of the original characters in it, so it may well be worth it. Who knows? Okay. I have not seen it. I don't know. Anyway, I digress. So I think that for me, though, I don't mind it has to be 1 or 2. I kind of like both. I actually quite like Home Alone 1 and Home Alone 2.
You think they could sit there as one?
They are basically the same movie. If you actually break it down, you know, you've got that mania in the beginning where they've sort of left the alarms off and they've forgotten that they've got to go to the airport. If you have a look at, say, for example, the house, obviously, with all of the different booby traps for the bad guys, they're the same film, let's be honest. But anyway, no, they're both great. I'd say that It's a Wonderful Life, I love that from a little bit of a vintage perspective, and probably Miracle on 34th Street, the Richard Attenborough version.
You sound like a proper movie connoisseur. What have you got coming up over the next 3 hours?